Should be.
Yep, I see it. I see it. I see us.
Are we live?
I see it. I see it. There we go.
Possibility with so many notifications I'm seeing on this page.
All right, great.
I can't even pull it up on my computer.
Is it like full?
Yeah, just making sure it is full screen. I can see medium there.
Okay, perfect. That works. So, yo, what's going on, guys? It's Socks for 5 and 6 here, and we're here today talking about the Sonic Movie 3 spoiler discussion, and this will be out for all of eternity afterwards. So if you come by and say hi, thank you very much for stopping by. And you're here with a bunch of people who work on the channel as well. I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Well, since I'm the guy that's showing his face cam on the computer, mighty been my role. I'm inside Daniel, you may call it Paco Dude, and I've been hassling with the Sonic 3 content, but there will be more along the way. But for now, I can take a break, take a back seat, not stay up late for editing more videos, and join my good friend Socks, aka Socks 456, for a full spoiler discussion. So if you have not seen the movie, sucks to be you. You got spoiled on Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, TikTok, because now this is just going to be a full discussion of Sonic Movie 3, and this movie with me, but Socks and these two other guys too. Good to have you here.
I guess I will go next. What's up, y'all? It's me, Blitzman83, and today we're going to be doing a live Sonic Movie 3 discussion with these two guys, or three guys. Hello, I can't count. Socks, Pop Culture Dude, and Biss. Thank you for having me on here, Socks. Yeah.
I don't really know if I should do an intro, but
I mean, we're chosen profile, bro, so you gotta introduce yourself.
fair enough. Hello world, I'm Biss. I've seen Sonic 3 at least twice, and I'm here with these three lovely gentlemen.
Glad to have you guys apart, and really let's get started. So I want to just talk about it, I guess, obviously in sequence and order, but once we get to like the post-credit scenes, we'll stop and figure out how we want to attack that, since it was a lot and it was pretty different. So let's just start from the beginning. Obviously, at the beginning of the movie, a Shadow's being awakened from his stasis of 50 years, and the touch that I liked the most was Maria seems to be playing "Live and Learn" on her guitar. Yeah, I thought that was really good.
But one thing I want to comment about that, so Socks, you know you listen to a lot of Emmy Jones covers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't the acoustic version of Live and Learn sound identically similar to her cover of the song? Because when I play that video again, I'm like, wow, it sounds a lot like Maria's. Did the filmmakers look up her music of her iteration of the song? I just got like a big gasp when I just realized it.
That's exactly what I was thinking, because it is very one-to-one, very similar. But it was really nice. I thought that was a nice touch. I honestly thought, like, at the beginning of the film, like, maybe they were going to make her the creator of Live and Learn. I thought that would have been cool, too.
That would have, and you want to know what would have been cool? That would have been like a nice lullaby to Shadow, when kind of like the inspiration of that Brazilian Project Shadow fan film, which I honestly wish that they would have taken more notes from. But like, man, I just wish there was like one scene that kind of like, I don't know, played the song, and that would have been a perfect reminder of why that is Shadow's theme in the movie.
I agree. What about you guys?
Yeah, the first thing I noticed when I heard that ukulele, guitar, whatever it was, I was like, oh, that's Live and Learn. So, I guess, I don't know, just a fun little Easter egg. I'm trying to hold myself back from moving forward, but yeah, it was nice to hear Live and Learn.
Yeah, I think it was really sweet. I wish they did a little bit more with that.
Yes.
I agree. I wish they added just something else to make it more. Because, I mean, she's playing it. It never gets brought up again.
Yeah, this could have been an additional scene where she actually plays it, and probably like Shadow like rests behind
I agree. So after that, Shadow wakes up. Um, he's obviously hearing the music, but then he does wake up. He breaks the barrier thing that he's in, and he starts attacking all the soldiers and stuff. And then eventually, he does escape.
From the city in Japan.
Yep, and he's going around Japan and causing havoc. But I think that
Would it
opening
be?
was pretty cool.
I was gonna say, like, if you want me to like comment about it, I mean, first of all, the visual effects, Jeff Fowler, Tyson as whoever's in charge, top notch from the lighting of red and how the way that it kind of reminds me of like one of the earlier Shadow movies where it goes like trauma flashbacks of Maria and then just go back to the present timeline. And of course, what's so amazing about it, since you know Jeff Fowler worked on those cutscenes in that Shadow game, just reference after reference from the kicks and everything.
Hmm.
I know that the Duck Soldier at the beginning was what's the dude's name for the Lonely Island? Sherman's going, yeah, yeah. I'm like, oh, it's the guy that directed the Flames of Disaster episode. Now he's a freaking gun agent eating donuts. Now
Yeah.
that kind of makes sense. Because remember back then in Sonic TV, they announced these random cast members are being part of the cast, and some fans were like, oh, maybe they could be a side character. I'm like, nah, guy. I mean, aside from Maria, obviously they're just like, wink, wink, head nods, like, oh, this is what they didn't see.
I agree. What you got to say?
First time in that, the way that it was executed, and what was also even amazing when Shadow was like escaping from the prison island, transition to the logo, down, 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 down. God, it's like Junkie XL. I'll talk later about the music, but Junkie XL, listen to the criticism from the last two movies. Not saying the last two musics were like not like bad or anything, but you can definitely tell it's missing some of the Sonic music elements for what makes the music so iconic from the game. So at least that motif is like played throughout. And I think from that intro, great.
I agree, 100%. I think there's that opening sequence also being kind of like very similar to how Sonic 2 starts off with the antagonist with Knuckles and Jim Carrey's Eggman. Being the opening scene, I think Knuckle or Shadow and this one being the opening scene is still the right choice.
I think it's easily the best opening out of all three movies. If I'm being biased, but I just think it has the strongest opening, like how to introduce a character into the film.
I agree. I 100% agree. Shall we move on, or anyone have anything else to say about that one?
Is it anyone want to say anything about the movie? It feels like
Yeah, it's like, yeah. I would say like the animation, man, like Shadow escaping was so cool, man. I'm sitting here watching the film, and like I'm looking at his animation, like as he's escaping Prison Island, like his skating animation. I'm like, oh my gosh, man, look, it's so sharp. And I caught a couple of references to his attack patterns from the games, and I'm like, yeah, they really studied and they really did their homework for this film. But yeah, I think like you were saying, it was definitely the best opening out of all three movies. I don't think there's anything else they could have really added to it, but if they did add something, I'm pretty sure it elevated even more. But best opening.
easily.
Yeah, I get elaborating on that a little bit. I love the animation they did for Shadow, like skating on the water.
Hmm.
I don't know what it was, but something about it just looked like really good.
It's like angelic. It's so nice.
It was like so smooth, like the transition from the wide skating to like the really closed in, like I'm coming to get you type skating. Like it was, yeah,
From movie to movie, I feel like they do get better at like everyone's move set.
yeah,
Based on like how the way they move, and of course you see in the marketing like the homages of the poses from the games, the comics, the art style, and all that's more like they've been doing their homework for that.
Hmm.
Respect for it.
And that works out really well because we want to see these characters in their best light. So after that scene, we do go back to the heroes finally, and they're having a race. I'm pretty sure that's how it starts.
Yep.
And
yeah.
that's obviously a very nice touch because we get to see them finally like sharing a longer stayed brotherly bond because obviously the Knuckles show happens between 2 and 3, and so now we see more of a developed brotherly bond, and that goes into the Be Earth Day scene. So we can talk about all of that real quick.
The Arthur Day, as Sonic was mispronounced it back then. But not gonna lie, I'm gonna comment something about it. It's like I know a lot of Sonic fans are like, oh wow, it's exactly like Generations, except minus all the colorful characters with just Tails and Knuckles, Tom, Maddie, and the dog Ozzy. But when I first saw that pic of the Earth Day, like I literally thought it was gonna be half a birthday celebration, but the one thing I did expect was like, yeah, it's the day where Sonic's on Earth. But before we get to the scene, it has to be confirmed that yes, the movie does take place in 2024. So it means that Sonic actually did step on Earth for like what, 10 years? So I guess he entered on Earth in 2010, and then 2020 he finally stumbled upon Tom and Maddie, then get adopted by the Wachowskis. Now I'm doing this continuity-wise with the real world. And another thing I do like about the sequence is you get like what he just said, like you see the brotherly dynamic, which a lot of people compare them to the Ninja Turtles. Aka, you know, there's no fourth member, but Sonic and Knuckles are kind of like Leo and Raphael. Ironic because Deadpool's like Leo, and Tails is obviously like the nerd part of the trio. But I will admit, like seeing their abilities when Sonic's like running backwards, I'm like, okay, now he's not the Sonic X. And the Music Man, okay, I know most people are getting skeptical with licensed songs, but I will say this is my body's opinion. The best licensed song that's not a Sonic song is Goldfinger's cover of 99 Netherlands, 99 Years of Disco. But like, not only, I mean, I used to be obsessed with that song when I was a teen, but it definitely captures that early 2000s vibe and Sonic Adventure 2 and the Sonic games. They're mostly famous for their 2000s rock music, so I'm like, great, such a fitting thing. But the one thing I did like obviously big reference coming by where Tails and Knuckles are tapping and waiting, like in the game. And then this iconic motif where Sonic would pass the quote-unquote hologram 2 years this track.
Yeah, I got that.
It's more like nice touch to that, so that was really good.
Yeah, I thought the scene was really good. I enjoyed seeing more of Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails like interacting together because we didn't really get to see that in the second movie or even in the Knuckles TV show. Like I was kind of missing Sonic and Tails, but you know. So I thought that scene was really good. I will say the only thing I didn't like about it is I wish there was more of it, and I guess we'll eventually end up getting into like the runtime later. But I felt like the scene could have been just a little bit longer. Like I wanted to enjoy it just a little bit more. But yeah, I like that they also went back to Sonic's home, his cave, and Tom got to see like where he was living and like how it was like, and you know you get that little talkative moment where he's like, you know, life is about the choices you make, and you're gonna make some good choices and some bad choices.
Mm-hmm.
I will kind of say all the kind of like heartfelt moments, like really like teachable moments. I feel like there's a better way for them to do it, and like you know spread their message. But it works. It works for how they do it. Yeah. Overall, just a really really good scene.
I mean, the one thing I will like to add for the comment is the first thing about the more interaction with Sonic and Tails and Knuckles together as a trio, because like what you guys said, because obviously the best thing about that Knuckles series in the first episode was their interactions, but unfortunately we don't have that much throughout that film, and then we get a little more of it in the third film. But the scene I forgot to bring up, I love that out of nowhere they actually find the cave where Sonic was raised in, so it definitely proves that the first movie still carries a lot of impact. And the new detail that we've obviously never noticed in the first film because they never thought about it till now is where Sonic has this huge green illustration of Emmett Lantois, like in the beginning. So I'm like, oh, so since when he came to Earth, that's where he started to write, because, you know, he died by the Achilles tribe. But I will admit, the message of, you know, Tom talked about, like, he could have been, like, I like how it transitions from the changes for what makes us who we are, and then Sonic, it definitely applies, like, I could have been, like, a completely different hedgehog. It's like, yeah, I like the similarities and the conscious of how that was built up between the conflicts between Sonic and Shadow when we come to the next scene. But going to be corny to compare it to, but I definitely see him as like the quote unquote Uncle Ben to Sonic the Hedgehog in a way of being like the mentorship, but there's an uncertain fate, cop out, so to speak, that was going to like inevitably happen. But that being said, it just really like proves that there's a lot of like, more maturity because in the first movie Sonic has no idea like what it's like to be raised with a family. Second movie, he's still like, hey, I got the superpowers, and then Tom just warns by saying you can't just be reckless with your decisions. You gotta like, be more responsible and just be more, mature of looking out for others than just like using your powers just for fun. The typical great powers and great responsibilities. So I like the maturity and the dynamic of how Tom plays his like father parental role, and then later on in the movie, which we'll talk about later, that's where it becomes a tad bit more emotional if you're attached to like that bond since the first movie.
I agree with all of what you guys had to say. But to not rehash what you guys said, I guess the only thing I'll add to it is that I love how they're sticking with the Tails gadgets thing. Like, because during their first little race, like, we get to see the holograms again from at the end of Sonic Movie 2 when he was using that to defeat Robotnik. And now that just like it's just a part of his moveset. I think that's so cool that we just get to keep building upon Tails, and that's what I want to see. Like, just we got to see that with Knuckles. He got his whole TV show. Tails needs a little something, and I feel like he definitely gets it more in the whole movie. But like just in that scene, like you're seeing his development just get off the ground, which is awesome.
I want to agree because I definitely say that they definitely use like enough of Tails' gadgets in the second movie, but let's be honest, we see Tails' other gadgets are used by Matty and Rachel in that whole 15-minute segment of the whole Wise Stuff plot, and I was kind of disappointed by thinking like we could have seen Tails use that stuff rather than just like these other guys that has no idea how to use these devices. So I'm glad in the third film we definitely see a bit more of like the tech side for Tails, including the holograms one. I will admit, I feel like they couldn't get through for the budget. This is just a minor nitpick. I'm like, man, the last plane was destroyed in the last. I kind of wanted to see like exactly like Sonic Adventure 2, like a new remodeled tornado plane, but they got hired by Gunn, and still, at least stay true to Tails' character. He actually has his experience of like flying vehicles up in the sky, like with a helicopter. So I'm like, I know that could be too much, but I'm like, that's something that I wish that could have been the third film because I say two inspirations.
Correct. So let's move on to the next scene, and that is when Gunn essentially just crashes Sonic's party, and they need Team Sonic's immediate assistance. And we get to see them go upon the plane, and that's when they track down where Shadow is, and that's when we do get to the Tokyo scene, and also the early release scene of when Team Sonic first faces off against Shadow.
One thing I really like about that gun helicopter sequence is like first, like literally, like I know people can complain about the pacing, but literally we didn't like hesitate to like, all right, the Sonic team, the trio actually has their time, and then boom, straight to the helicopter, getting ready, and of course, I like that. The best thing what I like about Knuckles is like he still is funny, but he's not like stupid dumb funny like Sonic Boom. Like he still bring that fish out of water comedy, but also a little bit of that rivalry conflict, but just done in a more silly way. It's more like who's done it? Who came up with that name? This is the old Team Knuckles, and then obviously staying true to his character from his 100% muscle motive. And the best thing about it is, of course, I never would expect Ben Schwartz to say this iconic line, but he actually said it. Hello, the movies. We're out of here. I'm like, okay, it's a we thing because in the original game it's just Sonic himself. So I'm like, well, I was kind of disappointed that there was no Faker reference. It kind of switched it up a bit, but during that sequence, I'm like, all right, I was not expecting that, but that was a nice callback. And also the song choice, I didn't notice it the first time, but I realized it's the same band that sang Vandalize from Sonic Frontier. So I'm like, oh, I didn't notice it around that time. So I'm like, at least you got someone from pre-existing Sonic music bands that was associated with the franchise and actually incorporated in. And that's when they jump off. I like to get a Sonic Heroes moment if you saw like at like literally at the very end where you see Knuckles, Tails, and Sonic are like hanging down. Mm-hmm. They just close. I'm like, okay, nice Heroes inspiration once when they come in. And once they get the gun, I will admit the transition when they went from high in the sky, low on the ground,
The cinematography in this movie is so much better than the last two. It's not even funny. Like it's so much better.
Yeah, and I think because of the lighting and not only the visual effects, I think because, and I will say this, obviously Tokyo, Japan is such a perfect city set piece because obviously that's where Sonic was first originated from, their respective creators, new opportunities for action sequences. And I like that Sonic makes a Tokyo drift. I'm like, of course, because that's a very pretty did take place in Tokyo. Like that was very flying over. But that being said, I think easily that was like the most colorful set piece. And I think there was one interview where Jeff Ballard actually visited Tokyo, Japan, and then he literally told people behind the crew saying, "Let's film in Japan," and then that's what they did. So I'm like, good use of utilizing that stage just to like brighten up the colors, brighten up the characters, and just use it as like an interesting set piece in the film.
Mhm. I agree.
Have to think probably unless these guys have something to say about, the first intro when they went to Japan.
Mhm. What do you guys think about just the whole Japan thing?
Um, First thing I will say is the SA2 reference. Oh, the first time I heard that, I wanted to go crazy. But I didn't have a really reactive theater, so I'm like, I'm controlling myself this whole time I'm watching the movie. I'm like, yo, that's an SA2 reference, y'all. That's an SA2 reference. Um, so I kind of enjoy the mini little conflict of the Team Sonic. Like, why is it Team Sonic? I thought that was a little funny. Um, I will say I loved in the Shadow and how they introduced him to Team Sonic. One standout line that I absolutely love is when he goes, "You jumped out of a gun helicopter. There's
Mhm.
nothing to talk about."
That went
Oh
hard.
my gosh.
The way he delivered that line, it was just too good.
Absolute amazing writing right there.
I love how angry he sounded there. Like he wasn't like terribly upset, but you know he had that little bit of spite in his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
like
like,
literally, like he said, like you jump out of a gun helicopter. It's like it's such a simple line, but just the delivery of how Keanu says, like you feel the emotion after when you just saw that.
and
Absolutely.
another thing with Keanu's lines is like there's so many lines in this movie that I'm sure we'll talk about later that he delivers so well. Like you can tell, like he's feeling a lot of pain right now. Like you can tell he's hurt, and Keanu does a good job of delivering that. And then the last thing I'll say about this scene is I like how just Shadow in general, but I like how unfazed he is by the whole thing. Like even after Sonic's chasing after him, he's like, even though he's like, the more you talk, the more I want to hit you. Like he's still unfazed. Like he doesn't really care. He just wants this hedgehog to leave him alone because it can get a lot worse than what it is now. So that's all I'll say right now.
The one thing I do want to bring up is the fact that earlier, before we get to like the Team Sonic versus Chao fight, I like that earlier in the beginning before Chao Caused like the captain in Japan. I love how the rain literally goes down his face as he's feeling lost and feeling sad after like 50 years being suspended over there in film. And obviously because Keanu Reeves, John Wick in the rain, Shadow in the rain, it's no different. But during the moment when all the gun soldiers were like lining up, the way that Keanu said this line where he's like, "Why won't you leave me alone?" It's more like you can definitely tell like what this dude is pointing out, like he's traumatized, and now after that, once you pick him off, boom, he's gonna like step out of your way, man. So I feel like that intro that sets up, Shadow's anger, his rage, his vengeance, and then it leads up to Team Sonic's like I just like that slow build up that was recapped before, where Shadow's just feeling lost at the time, and then obviously just losing control out of himself. So it's just a perfect setup.
I agree for sure. I think Shadow just overall and the beginning half of this film, he's definitely built off of like wanting revenge. Like they did a great job at hammering that in, but to me he always just seemed much more frustrated because it's made very apparent that that entire time that he's in stasis, that he's conscious about what just happened. Like he's just been having to remember these thoughts for 50 years and just doesn't really know like essentially what to do. So he just built up anger, and now that's just really all that he can express throughout the first half of this film, I'd say.
Very spot on for the character.
Shall we move on?
Wait, while you do that, I'm just gonna go refill my water before I start talking again. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the next thing that pretty much happens is they do have their brawl, obviously, and then if I am correct, that's when. Where does Shadow go after that? Where does Shadow go?
Uh,
I heard absolutely nothing of what he just said.
you know, after he took down Team Sonic, I guess twice, um, he hopped on the motorcycle, then he took the gun, and that's when they had that chase.
Yeah.
Yep, literally stealing one of the Gun Soldiers 2021 Bugatti. And then the best thing about it is, back then, I was originally hesitant by saying, I'm going to let Shadow hold the gun for a PG-rated movie, which, once again, they still find a way to do the homage, which clearly it's a laser gun, because, they got to, keep it quote-unquote safe for the kids. But that being said, it's more like John Wick likes guns, Shadow likes guns, and I like the fact that Tails warned time by saying, I don't think it's a good idea that you should catch up with them, which it does remind me of course, this is a thing in the games, in the final, last remaining cutscene where Sonic and Shadow are, racing each other when they're fighting up in the yard. This is kind of like a grounded version of that, but just down to the street race of how the way where Shadow drifts left and right. And what's so cool about it is when they went to, the Japanese Eiffel Tower, clearly you get this Akira reference where he slides up and down. And I like this homage once when Shadow and Sonic go Dragon Ball Z, up in the sky with up their sparks. They both caused a power outage, similar like how Sonic caused a power outage in the first movie. And then out of nowhere, Sonic, Back to the Future reference, when he says 1.21 gigawatts, and I'm like, hey, that actor also voiced Chief Patrick, what's his name? Chief Patrick come back in the Knuckles series, so I just thought that was a random possible reference there. But I also like the moment where when Sonic got handcuffed and then Tails and Knuckles reminded Sonic by saying why do you have to leave us on your own, man? It's like, hey, we're partners, we're your team, and I feel like it's a relatable topic for those half a doubts themselves, close friends with each other. It's more like no, I got this. I don't think I need your help. So it just goes to that topic where Sonic, even though he's more experienced, but he still has a lot more maturity, but also having to find his struggle on finding himself to not just trust on others, but also trust himself before he goes on his own. So I kind of like that was a wink, wink nod by saying yeah, those are going to be the flaws that Sonic will have to overcome later throughout his conflict with Shadow and with the other characters as well.
I agree. I do too. At that whole sequence, Team Sonic, the thing I like how they do make Sonic have to still grow up and mature throughout this film, and they're not just rushing to get him to essentially be Sonic, the guy from Sonic Adventure 2, and he still needs to learn how to team up with his teammates and be a part of the team. They say that early on, like I forget when they do, but they do mention how Sonic is still working on being, a team player, and it shows very early and it shows very late. But by the end of the film, obviously, it's looking like he's going to be ready to be a part of a team.
Yeah, I mean, literally, in my defense of movie Sonic, which obviously people want it to be more like Game Sonic. I know it's going to be a decent comparison. It's kind of like where people wanted Tom Holland's Spider-Man to be more like the Spider-Man that they know and love until it took 3 movies. I kind of felt like a similar vibe with that with Sonic, which, yes, he's definitely experienced to be using his powers, using to become a team leader, but also having the balance of having trust for one of his other allies, but also have self-control in his emotions. So that's the overall point. You don't want Sonic to be a perfect OP character that has no overcoming for the flaws, because that's what makes the audience get so invested in the character once when there's still a couple of struggles, but yeah, still a couple of hurts. And I feel like once again that's really necessary for your main protagonist, because without those flaws, then why should we empathize?
Exactly. So let's move on to the next scene, and I'm pretty sure this is when they go to the Chow Garden.
Yep, Chow Garden Cafe, the
Yeah.
biggest Easter egg by far in the movie.
And this is also when Commander Walters, in my opinion, is the guy who called Team Sonic to their immediate assistance. Really wants to talk to them because he knows all about Shadow for the most part. And this is also where egg drones attack them, and Commander Walters dies. Like, he's pretty much just dead. And Team Sonic goes to team up with Robotnik. So let's talk about that scene.
Okay, I need to talk about. It's so funny that the Olive Garden guy dies at the Chow Garden, if you know what I mean. So it's kind of like pretty hilarious from what used to be called back then. I will admit, I'm gonna be honest. I expected him to die, like regardless, because the Shadow origin story. But I was not expecting to be killed off that quick. Like I feel like the death was maybe a bit too soon, and maybe could have stretched out maybe a bit more. But I don't know. It just happened because you gotta push through to the plot. But that being said, the Chow Garden, I mean, obviously, great Easter eggs to the actual Chow Garden and the actual Chow skins from the game. There's even like a green hill like building in the background, Chowbird, the Detective Pikachu reference, which was pretty funny. That being said, like the way that Commander Walters, like, I had a feeling, or as a matter of fact, we all had a feeling that yes, he was clearly involved during the events of Project Shadow, literally ever since the second Sonic movie where he said, "My God, Project Shadow." But then I think okay, guys, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think they actually showcased Shadow's origin, where they definitely made definitely some real changes to the Shadow origin story, which I'm not upset about because remember this is more like in a live action setting since the movie version is different from the games because yeah, Jeff Fowler, like he is aware of the existence of Black Doom and since how Black Doom made a big comeback in the new Shadow Generations game, but I think they made the smart move like if they would have put Black Doom elements in, I think that would have been too much on the exposition, even too much for like the older parents by saying, "What's this giant black creature has to do with Shadow?" So, in order to make like a grounded version of Shadow, but still try to make it faithful, like I'm kind of surprised that he's not created by Gerald. Like he was like the first real alien that actually came on the planet back in 1974. But they still utilize Gerald like he is involved with Project Shadow, still like the genius behind mind for what they can do to stabilize Shadow. And then it opens up to the conflict that Commander Walters was there, where we actually see like a young version of him of how they stabilize Shadow, which once again before it foreshadows the Maria stuff. It just showcases that Shadow has been a lab experiment throughout all these years for how much they keep it contained as use them as a lab rat guinea pig. So I kind of like the buildup that they got, but also the buildup of Shadow's anger when he looks at Commander Walters straight to the eye. And then when we get to the Batnik drone, I will admit, on first impression, I thought it was Eggman, but in reality, it makes sense because Gerald was the one that hacked the system and released Shadow out of Prison Island. So yeah, it was Gerald behind from his schemes, then goes for the drone. And the thing is, you do realize the Chow Guard is filled with children, right? So obviously, Gerald hates humanity for what they've done for Maria, so he could care less if there's any kid or any old man like Commander Walters actually dying off. But the one thing is, once again, I just feel like the death was maybe a bit too quick, but yet being said, it just pushed the plot forward. But that being said, Agent Stone was OP, bro. Like, I was honestly not expecting him just to ride on with this Ready Player One looking motorcycle, pulling off all those stunts, and then Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles literally chase around, escaping from the city in Japan, and then literally just build up of where Stone could be with Eggman. I like the callback where Knuckles like, "It's the goat milker." It's like, bro, that was a funny line in the second movie where it's like, "What about your minions of goat milker?" So I kind of like that one joke is paid off in this one. And then that being said, the way that builds up to the giant crab mix scene, and once we get to Jim Carrey's Eggman, of course, I'm glad that he's back too. He got the fast food what he wants to be. The funny thing about the joke of him watching De La Vista and then Ultima Facion, or seeing these two doppelgangers of this Hispanic guy meeting his twin brother, which if you watch Hispanic show, that's kind of like a common joke by saying, "He looks just like my brother." But also, the show that Jim Carrey's Eggman is watching, it's kind of like foreshadowing, like, okay, there's two guys in the same room fighting for one person. Then it goes for two Robotnik that will foreshadow Jim Carrey's Eggman in real life with the conflict between, like, what will they do with Shadow? What are they going to do to Stone? So, despite the television show being a joke, it's kind of like in the narrative, it kind of like foreshadows what's yet to come for Jim Carrey's Eggman for him, meaning a family reunion between the one conflict that they're fighting for. So, teaming up with these aliens, but like what you said, Stocks, Commander Walter was the one that signed them because, he seemed good with Team Sonic. But the one thing that I do have a complaint about Rockwell's character is we never see a solution where he forgives the aliens back then and still, despise them. So that fell off for, okay, you introduced this one character, but there was, no real solution for that character at the end.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said, and especially with Gerald being the one to kill Commander Walters. Essentially, he's the one who put all this in motion because he wanted to get back to Robotnik because he knew that his robots. I don't know how he knew that, but he knew that his robots would attract him essentially back to him because also during that time. Shadow goes back to the base where he was created, and that's also where he does find Gerald at. And so, uh, once Team Sonic teams up with Eggman and Team Robotnik, they do head over to that base to find the first key, I believe.
For what you just said. I mean, to be fair, I kind of expected it was Gerald the whole time because even though he didn't create Shadow, but he still was involved around the events of Project Shadow. But I bet once we get to the scenes, I do have a theory of whenever quote unquote still is alive the past 50 years because they may change the origin.
Hmm. Yeah, and I'm honestly okay with them changing Shadow's origin story. I did think him not being created by Gerald takes away from his relationship with Gerald because now it just seems like he's another person working on him, but he just cares about Maria. Um, but that is my take. I think at the end of the day, it's a good change though because it leaves the door open for a lot more with this character in the movie universe, depending on if they want to or not.
You're referring to Gerald, right?
What'd you say?
I said you're referring to Gerald, right?
Yeah.
Just making sure. I mean, there was literally one deleted scene that Jeff Fowler did admit, how is Gerald still alive? And then they said, during the pacing issues, why they never explained it because you want to know how Gerald is still alive and still rested, just literally licking Shadow's quill, kind of de-ages him a bit, makes him lives it's kind of like one of those heart pulse things that goes clear, and then that's how he eventually gets to live on to be 110 years old around that time. So that just went so uncanny. Just make the alterations why he's not executed, just like in the original game.
Hmm. And I also just feel like that wouldn't have made any sense because Shadow was never mentioned as the ultimate life form in this. He's just an alien from a black comet who's super powerful. That's why I feel like there's so much more about his backstory that we haven't seen yet.
A Shadow spin-off movie should happen. Just saying.
I agree. Absolutely. I think that has to be in the works at some point, if it's not already.
Especially after that second post-credit scene, definitely opens the door for that.
Exactly. So let's continue on. So I think we were just talking about after Gerald and them, he teams up with Shadow. He's trying to get Robotnik to come. Team Sonic and Team Ivo go to Shadow's old base. Shadow's having no, that was before. Shadow was having memories of Maria prior to that. Yeah, all of that. He was having his memories. Then he teamed up with Gerald, and then that's when Team Sonic and them go. They split up. Sonic's with Eggman. Tails is with Stone, and Knuckles is by himself. And that's when they get all caught, and they team up with Gerald, and Team Sonic's caught by Shadow and them.
Now that you reminded me, and I'm so glad that I get to see the movie twice. Way before we get to the team up dynamics, which I do have comments about it, I literally almost forgot. Shadow literally revisited the exact same bait, and the burnt roller skate is literally Maria's roller skate. And I think, I'm just trying my best to remember my knowledge from Shadow Generations. I think Maria was the one that suggested that Shadow, his air shoes could be like a roller skate or something.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that small little detail. It's more of course, I mean, Maria and Shadow could be one inspiration for that. And speaking speaking of Maria, the actress did a really good job. I will say that. And they do alter her outfit where it still is blue, but it's not exactly how she looks like in the games. But I still like the fact that they still kept the core of Maria where she's nice, generous, playful, and I don't think we ever seen this in much in other Sonic media. We actually get to see more of Maria's hobbies, which I like the fact that hobbies is kind of one theme in the movie, in this movie, whether it's Sonic, Tom, Maddie, but most importantly Maria and Shadow, which obviously Gunn used Shadow like he's a lab rat. But I also like the fact that Maria's trying to get in touch with Shadow's soft side, which I like the Easter egg where she sketched a bunny, which was the original reference where Sonic was supposed to be a bunny instead of a hedgehog when Sega was first creating the character. So I did like that Easter egg. But when they play the one song where it goes, but it's all right, it is kind of 70s-ish because, remember the movie takes place in 1974, which is why I was playing in a vinyl record where Maria's kind of bring the joy out of Shadow's darkness. I mean, literally in Generations, the reason why about Shadow's name, literally Maria depicts the light of Shadow's darkness, whether it's behind his inner demons, what he fights through. I do like the moment where, okay, I could definitely tell that the writers sort of took inspiration from the project Shadow fan film came out last year, but arguably speaking, that fan film, in my opinion, slightly did it better than the movie's version. But I still like the depictions where you get the more positive aspects of Maria and Shadow having their time together throughout the roller skating. And they still pay a homage to the Bio Lizard, which I know many of us speculate, we speculate by saying, oh, is the Bio Lizard going to be in the movie? So at least they put a non-Easter egg to the Godzilla parody with the Bio Lizard, but then, despite not just being just an Easter egg, but how the way it kind of alters Shadow's mindset where it literally just says, beware the alien. Then we get to this moment where, they changed the origin of Maria where he's not safe, which that's one of my biggest complaints about this iteration of Maria's I wish they would have give us a sign, maybe a cough or maybe a dizziness what Dark Beginnings did, which I think they did way better in that version. But I still think the dynamic between when they're looking up at the stars, and I'm trying to remember what was the line that Maria says, I think it was something where the stars are shining so bright even when it's no longer gone. I couldn't rephrase it, but I think it was such a nice moment where Shadow was talking to Maria by saying you think I'm gonna become one of them, nothing but a monster, just like in the movie. And then when Maria's you're my friend, and then I'm okay, at least they still kept the core of Shadow Maria. I just kind of wish there was a little more time to explore a bit more deeper to her themes. They never implied that she was big, maybe because they're too tough for kids. I feel a nice nod would have been a nice touch.
What do you guys think about that flashback with Maria?
Yeah, I want to bring that up way before we get to the team moments because I remember it literally happened before we get to the team of dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
Biss, do you wanna?
I was gonna say it. That whole flashback sequence that started with Maria and Shadow in the pod. Even if it was a little cheesy for some people, I still really liked it. I think it was a nice way to show their bond. I think those two interacting, I think it was very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
At least they did before.
Wait, what?
What, for what I just said?
Yeah.
I just said, despite some changes to the origin, at least they kept the core between the characters in terms of, making it as faithful as they can be with the relationship. Maria and Shadow actually being friends. Seeing the difference where Shadow's not just an alien, but at least, has a heart despite how cold-hearted he is.
Yeah, and that's one thing I will say. I really did enjoy the all the Maria and Shadow scenes. They were really nice. I enjoyed how even though Shadow didn't know what was going on and most of the stuff they were doing, he still tried to follow along. If you saw his facial expressions while they were dancing, he was "What? What are we doing?" But he was just going along with it, having fun. Yeah, I was a little upset that we didn't get an explanation, a good explanation of why Maria was on the ark. They just kind of said, "Oh, Gerald takes her wherever." So that's why.
Take your granddaughter to work today, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which was a little cheap, but we'll let that pass, I guess.
Yeah.
I did like the whole sitting under the stars moment. That was really nice. With the whole, even though a light is, even though a star is gone, the light will always shine. That's a recurring theme throughout the whole movie, which I thought was really nice. Like, it was really well said, and yeah, just helped create more of an understanding of how Maria and Shadow see each other. So that's really.
Yeah, I really do like when Maria said, when a light shines, a light still shines even though the star is gone. I think that does like hit hard for, and it should hit hard for Shadow because I mean, she does eventually pass away, and I feel like that's something to even leave someone with that's really good for them to just remember. So it makes it a lot easier, and I think that's why Shadow, in my opinion, at the end of the movie becomes so much more like he's not as angry like as the one in the video games. Like I feel like he's always angry with Sonic, even though he's his friend. Like I feel like he's still ticked off to be around him. By the end of this movie, I don't really see that, and I genuinely think it's because he still feels Maria's love after consulting with someone about it, and those flashbacks throughout the whole thing. I think even though Maria's story is different, and I do prefer the one in the games more because I feel like it's more sentimental. I still like this version. I still think they did justice for the most part. I just don't like that they took away her illness because I feel like that's a huge part of why Shadow's there. But at the same time, they took away the ultimate life form thing. So I guess it's a give or
Let's not
take.
forget, it doesn't take place in the Ark. It takes place down on Earth because in the games, Maria can't go to Earth where she's terminally ill. So big change from the games by comparison.
So it more so just feels like Maria's just a child who's a good child, and Shadow just lost like a family member, which is still very detrimental. Like it shouldn't go undermined, but I think that's the whole point of why Maria is so different and so loved upon Sonic fans. Because I mean, she was already ill, and now someone ends up taking her life away. So I feel like Shadow's motivation to want to, essentially kill everybody on Earth is a lot more. Nothing is ever justified, but more justified in his eyes compared to this. It seems very extreme, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, they did a good adaptation of their relationship, in my opinion.
I agree. I mean, even though, like, I have to agree with you, clearly the games and other media did it a whole lot better. But I will say this: the one thing that they actually had like a nice touch, which we did kind of expect, that young Commander Walters is still somewhat involved in the death of Maria. Obviously, not literally killing the child, but literally trying to pause by saying, "Hey, you're about to kill a child." Once when they were trying to take Shadow away, and why Shadow gets angry at Commander Walters, even though it was really Tom. So it really shows that this one random character from the first and second movie still had an impact in Project Shadow, but also the scenes with Maria as well. And I gotta admit, man, like once when the tank blow up, because it's a PG way of killing off Maria, which I'm surprised it didn't kill off Gerald or anyone else. But that being said, like the expression on Gerald's face and even Shadow's voice where he goes like Maria, that just bursts up the anger. It's like, well, I gotta say, it's a nice like. It's still dark, but not too dark enough where it's like, oh, it's gonna make the parents upset. Where, hey, that man just killed a child on screen. But at least, like we said, in terms of an adaptation, they did the best of what they do and still, like, make the death impactful for Shadow and Gerald's revenge.
I agree. The only thing I have to really say is that like they claim. Okay, so the one guy claims like they're trying, or no, it was the one guy. Gerald says they're trying to take Shadow away from us kids, and I just was confused. Like, did they just figure out that there was a super weapon or like super alien just roaming around? Because I mean, like, then what's the problem with Sonic being free? Like, I don't get it.
Especially, let's not forget, like, if you're telling me that Shadow was the first alien that could stop by on Earth for 50 years, and you see the montage where Maria has, like, sneaked Shadow out from the gun agents and from the scientists who are kind of, like, studying him in a way, and that's the one thing, it's like, so you're telling me it took 50 years when they stumbled another hedgehog that happens to be blue, and I know, I guess the Knuckles series kind of sort of went to the topic of that, of, analyzing their quills, analyzing their powers, all this and all that, but yeah, I will admit that I feel like that's kind of like a big plot hole that has never been brought movies. Like, I feel like they thought of this now, once when they brought in Shadow, but I guess back then it's like, oh crap, now we just gotta, like, bring the explanation of, like, aliens coming to the world. So, I don't know. It just feels like a plot hole that feels like that could have been filled in the gap.
I think they could have tightened it up, but you know, I still feel like they did a pretty good job at making this more for children and also still being faithful to the source material and to obviously Sonic Adventure 2 as a whole because that is the game that they are adapting. Let's move on to the next overall scene because I feel like it goes on for a big portion of the film, and that's the when they're going to get the second key. So I mean, from basically when Robotnik and Gerald decide to leave Shadow and Agent Stone and the Crab, to when Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Matty, Tom all team up to go and get that second key from the gun base.
One thing that's pretty funny, like when you mentioned that Stone and Shadow, they're watching the exact same Hispanic show. I forgot what Shadow said. When he's thinking like the female person should take the winner. It's like, is that supposed to be an inside joke where Shadow loves Latinas? Like, I've been seeing it on Twitter. It's like, I'm not sure if that was intentional from the writers, if that was the case, or wait, just insert that inside joke in. And that being said, the dynamics between Eggman and Gerald, which, I mean, obviously, what I love about Jim Carrey is the fact that Eggman is more highbrow, Gerald's more lowbrow. And the one thing is, I understand why they made Gerald intentionally funny, is because that's like one way to like not just reconnect with his grandson, but the key ingredient for the revenge with like not just along with Shadow, but also for Marie as well. But also, I like the fact that once when they get to the key guards, I like that earlier beginning of the scene where Knuckles gets afraid of ghosts, which either though we never see an actual ghost like SA2, but kind of like a wink wink homage. But I like the fact, like, literally after when we had the conflict between the Robotniks, Shadow, and Team Sonic once they got tied up, I like when Team Sonic returns back with Tom and Maddie. I like that the writers were like, so what do we do with the human characters now, aside from them doing other hobbies? And then they're like, how about they just let them be a part of the main story with the Sonic cast, which I can tell that the writers listened to the criticism for the last two movies where it's like, yeah, the human subplots have nothing to do with the main cast, so they find a way to incorporate Tom and Maddie into the group, even though I will admit, as goofy as it was, it's kind of funny that Tom kind of has like this ventriloquist puppet that he made. But I like the most where Tails, once again, makes gadgets, makes like this hologram of how they would break into the gun headquarters just to get the other key card. And I like that couple of Easter eggs where it just shows like see a mini Sonic, a mini Tails, and a mini Knuckles. But I will bring this up. I think this one moment where they talk about the Master. No, it was Maddie who talked about it, where why can't Sonic just go Super Sonic and just take the emerald away? And even though I do like the conflict that it was built up where Knuckles made a vow and make a promise that they will never touch it again. But that being said, you know what you saw coming by saying like, I trusted by the greatest words, like Knuckles. You didn't give it to me quickly, did you? And then he did. It's more like, I get it that we'll talk about the other side characters, which half of them are in the movie, half of them are not, which is Wade, the holograms of Rachel, Rando, and Disguised by Tom Maddie. I like that the filmmakers still like, well, they were a part of the last movie, so how can we incorporate them with not too much of it? Wade, you get one scene, Get Out, Rachel, Rando, you had your one scene in Sonic 2. Let's just make sure, like, you're in the movie, but in disguise, where Tom just turned himself to a hunky black guy, which people were making fun of that in the comments when they saw that in the movie. But that being said, I think they did a good job by saying, like, yeah, side human characters, that's not the main point. And then focus in the main core where Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are, like, they're doing their own Mission Impossible style heist where Tom and Maddie has to break in. And when, like, I think, like, it was like a hard drive file that Tails has. And I like the Easter egg where Tom has to blow it and then plug it back in. He's like, it's a trick that I've learned from the 90s. You get it when you grab a Nintendo game or a Sega game.
The cartridge.
The cartridge and they put it to the console. That's like a nice nod to it. And then we get to both of the Robotniks. Once when they try to get into the lab heist where, they're in disguise of the paintings. I like when you get to Ivo. There's a painting of Tyson Hess as a gun agent literally behind him. So I didn't catch that cameo like earlier today. And
Wait.
Of course, if you watch the first two movies where obviously Ivo dances whenever he gets into the grooves. I mean, one, it's a Jim Carrey thing to do. Two, it's fun to see him dancing with himself during this one 2005 electric pop song that goes, world galvanized. My finger is on the button. It was just a nice laser sequence. But then, I don't know if this is like a big SA2 Easter egg. You guys gotta remind me. Wasn't there like a level where it's in the Space Colony art where whether you play Sonic or Shadow where the floor goes up and it goes down? I think it was a level in SA2, like somewhere like in the final story. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I feel like during that gravity moment was maybe like an intentional Easter egg just to that level, but it's like in a more crowded version where they're fighting over the last key card. And I will admit, I like that Knuckles becomes like the Hulk smashing, breaking in glass, and they were all like flying up to the air. But however, the conflict that I did like was during the moment where these ice start about to fall down to Tom Maddie, which I just recently just read this. The writers actually almost intended to kill off Tom, but in their headcanon, they're like, I think killing off Tom might be a bit too much for this one movie since, Marie is dead, Gerald's dead, Commander's dead, and they don't want to kill off, James Marsden because they kind of want him back. And it would be more depressing for the Sonic cast and Maddie, and I think Sox, I think you bring this up, it would make Shadow even a lot more irredeemable if that was the case, so it's a good thing they kind of like not do that. But I did like the build up where, you get to see Sonic's bitterness kind of like, save the guy that was like a father to them when he sprinted up and spin down to the pro. And by the way, this is a funny joke that I caught me off guard earlier where Ivo and Gerald are down on the ground, and then once when they're on the ground and what's her name? Rockwell gets her with the key card. I like that Gerald says, really, a woman in the military. It's like, of course, he's an old man out of time, so of course he's not up to date of today's culture of gender roles in today's society. And I like the moment where Tom often roasts Eggman a lot for his outfit dress in the first movie, like Comic-Con jokes, skin tight joke. Like, it's a running gag throughout the three movies whenever Tom and Ivo interact with each other. And the callback where Ivo's like, I think put a bunch of bleeding parts with their emotional support animals because they're raising three colorful animals. I like the fact like during the gravity moment, it just goes from upstakes to downstakes, and it literally feels like a level from SA2, but just in a bounce with like fighting over the key card. So as silly as it was, you still like you get at least drama by saying, crap, what if Tom Maddie does die for the Sonic spin dashes to get through?
What do you guys have to say about that? The whole London scene.
Oh, one thing I forgot to add, there is a rendition of from the city, which I'll be honest, I didn't hear it the first time. Like, I hear it, but then when I hear down, 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 I'm like, oh, there it is. These from the city sequence in the music.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
As far as the sorry.
No, you go ahead. That's what I'm saying.
As far as the like the entire London mission goes, I did like it. I feel that we didn't need that whole dance montage with Gerald and Ivo. I feel like they could have trimmed that down a little bit, like more so to benefit, I guess, Shadow or Sonic's development. Like I didn't hate it,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like they could have used their time a bit more wisely.
I do agree with that because I feel like that's like targeted towards the children. Like I don't know, like because they are already different characters. They're goofier. They're so much more silly, but I just feel like as well that it isn't it isn't needed. Like they could have done it for maybe like 30 seconds and then cut to more. Or like we never see how necessarily Shadow gets there. I mean, we know he's probably going to teleport in, but he just kind of like falls from the ceiling before he attacks Walter's Tom. But we could have that could have been a whole while of him just getting there, or like deciding, you know what, the crab sunk. I'm going to go help Gerald. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now that you mentioned that, I honestly forgot to bring that up because remember when Tails hacked to the system, literally before when Agent Stone literally asked Shadow, like saying, like, what are you or Gerald up to? And obviously there never was a clear explanation. And it's kind of sad because Tails and Agent Stone were getting along like earlier in the movie by saying like, oh yeah, Sonic doesn't treat me as a sidekick, and then Stone's like, yeah, that's what we are, just best friends, even though I secretly love my boss. But it kind of sucks that Stone was actually getting along with Shadow, but then Shadow disappeared. Stone gets abandoned crab mech, so he suffered Shadow doing? Like, as much as I love the Jim Carrey stuff, but he just popped in out of nowhere once he crashed into the building, which I would have agreed that. What was he doing once when he escaped from the crab man? Racing through London, just hits the tower? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Blitz, what do you have to say about the London sequence?
I like that they tried to include this was kind of like the humans moment, which definitely prefer over the whole wedding scene. Like, I definitely could have done without that. I kind of don't like Sonic's impatientness. He was like very impatient during this whole scene, but it was whatever. I will say this over and over and over. I could have legit done without Robotnik and Gerald for this whole scene. Like, I don't know, everybody was like, "Oh yeah, I enjoy Robotnik and Gerald, and the dance scene was kind of cool and whatever." Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was legit sitting here like, when do we get back to the action? And there's another scene later in the movie that I'll talk about that too. But like I don't know, I didn't really enjoy Eggman in this movie. Like, I kind of expected him to go full crazy, not full crazy, of course, because it's still a kids movie, but like just lean more into that game Eggman, and being so comedic throughout the whole movie. I think the last thing I'll say about this scene is, I guess the last two things I'll say about the scene is, one, I kind of don't understand how Commander Rockwelder didn't understand, or whatever is Commander Rockwelder, something like that. She didn't understand that, what's his name, was that from the I don't understand how she didn't understand that, because
Oh, that Walters was like alive.
Yeah, Walters. Yeah.
Also, that was the last time we ever see Rockwell. We never see her again for the rest of the movie for no reason at all.
Wait, I think you're right, actually.
Yeah.
That's the last time we see her.
That's what I'm saying. That's my biggest complaint about the Rockwell character. Like, she's like, I hate these aliens. Why do we trust them? But then later on in the movie, even when they saved the world, there was no solution by saying, all right, I forgive you, aliens. You're the good guys now. And that's it. So what was the point of introducing this new character if they weren't going to do much after this one scene about the key card?
She really doesn't show up for the rest of the movie. I didn't notice that.
So that's like the other thing.
I realize.
Yeah, but that's the other thing I'll touch on real quick. She barely had any importance in this movie. Like, she shows up, or not in Tokyo. She shows up to the beer day. She's like, "Hey, we need you guys." Boom. She finds out Commander Walters is dead. Then she's like, "Oh, I hate Team Sonic." That, I didn't really understand that. I feel like they could have had. There should have been more of a clear reason of why she didn't like them, because it was just, "Oh, Commander Walters is dead. Here's a picture of Team Sonic. Now I hate you guys." I didn't really like that. It was kind of, they could have really developed her character, and I think they could have developed her character even more if there was more, like, if the movie had a longer runtime, because I feel like they just kind of had to just cram her in there and be like, "Here's a new character." But yeah.
Sorry to like. Oh, sorry. You go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry to barge in all of a sudden because I just like joined into the conversation.
Welcome.
But I feel like, yeah, thank you. I feel like a lot of the movie's problems for me could have been solved with more runtime, because, like, as we said, Rockwiller is kind of there, to say the least. She's just kind of there, and I feel like this is gonna sound like a little weird, but I feel like Tails in the movie was done a little dirty. Like, he all of a sudden, like, I don't feel like there was enough. I don't know how to enough emotional depth. I feel like during the argument, especially, because like that's his family, his like two brothers, the person he idolizes, literally, like, I'm pretty sure he understands like the whole like that's grief and like anger being part of it, but like he still said some pretty messed up stuff, and I feel like they should have gone more into that. But I feel like I don't know. That's just my thought. I feel like a lot of the movie's issues could have been solved with more runtime, basically.
Mm-hmm.
There's two things I want to bring up. It's kind of funny, agree or disagree with me, guys. It's kind of funny that there's this one random gun agent in the Knuckles series. You know who I'm talking about, the British one in that show.
Yeah.
Explains why he hates aliens compared to director Rockwell in Sonic 3. So, of course, personally for me, not the biggest fan of Knuckles. Like, that one thing in that show actually did it slightly better than this one Rockwell character in Sonic 3. And as I mentioned earlier, as much as I love the conflict between Sonic and Knuckles fighting over the Emerald, I hate that it just cuts to what we all expected, a joke, and secondly, Knuckles had to trust Wade Webber with the Master Emerald. I know the Angel Island would have been too expensive for the movie, but I'm like, come on. You have to trust this guy, the flame disaster guy, to play with your giant emerald as a hockey thing? Are you kidding me, man? Come on, Nuts, you're better than this.
I feel like that fits the goofiness of the world a little bit though, which I don't like. Like that's not a compliment to the movies, but I feel like it does fit like the goofiness that they're going for with since they wanted Adam Pally's character to become like to be back in this because it has to have a payoff somehow. So it makes sense, unfortunately, but like I wasn't looking forward to that. And going back to Captain Rockwell, I did not enjoy her character because she's like half baked. She doesn't have a real resolution at all. Like y'all said, like she leaves after um, the whole Walters thing, which was already weird because it's really said to be that he's dead. Like they don't ever say it, but it's very prominent that that's what they're aiming at. That's what they're alluding to, and she just kind of believes it. Like he's in an arm cast or something, and then that's just it. I just thought that was weird. Like Blitz said, I didn't really like the whole like issue with Team Sonic because I feel like that's just awkward. Like I mean, yeah, they're aliens, but they're the aliens that are going to essentially help you. Like Gunn didn't lie about anything in this movie like a lot of people were thinking they were going to do, or like they're going to trick Team Sonic into thinking Shadow's backstory was one way, but it was actually the other way. Like there was no conflict. Like it was just personal within her. So I just thought her character at the end of the day was almost useless. Like you could have just had some random person almost go unnamed and just be called like gun agent play her character. It didn't really matter.
It could have been rude with that. I'm just kidding. That probably would have been too much. Yeah, it was just so random that she never got her own closure, so I don't know. I just like don't get me wrong, Kristen Renner's a good actress, but I feel like she was wasted in this movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I almost want to say that they should have brought back like one of the agents from the Knuckles show to fill her role.
Mm-hmm.
That would have made a lot more sense, I think.
Right.
Even that gun agent, the British gun agent, had more depth than Rockwell by comparison. Because at least in that show, there was a reason why she hated aliens during that one episode. I think it was the fifth one of why she betrayed Gunn. It's like they could have just got her back and then just come back to Sonic 3, and it would have made a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm. Like I wish, because they did say in the Knuckles show like they were agents of Gun and then they like lost their job or whatever. But I almost would have liked if she just went back and was like, because I mean, they could have just been like she was desperate, you know, she's changed her ways, goes back, works for Gun, and then takes on this mission to really prove herself or something. Like they could have made a believable story because I don't know, Christian Ritter, honestly, she could have just played. She could play a different character that a lot of people wanted her to play, who's not in the film, unfortunately. But I think that's just such a waste of talent for no reason.
Yeah, back then we all speculated, and she would have been a good solid casting choice for Roots of that, but obviously there's multiple reasons. Number one, boobies. Like, I had that for the kids.
hmm
Second reason, I mean, I can understand why she couldn't like fit into the story because heck, the writers they wanted Ruth, they wanted Amy in this movie. Well, Amy Rose for the most part, but obviously Shadow's the main focus. They don't want to introduce a brand new character that's not Shadow, that's not Gerald. And it's because like what you guys said about the runtime, which I will agree with most of you guys. I get that the movie is shorter than the second movie, but I honestly wish it was as long. But the major difference with Sonic 2 was the wedding subplot dragged on had nothing to do with the main plot. While for Sonic 3, it definitely focuses more on the main characters, but our biggest complaint is I wish we would have seen more. A bit more of Marie and Shadow, a bit more of Sonic action, a bit more of, what we wish to see in the film.
Yeah, that's another thing that I think was really underutilized. I feel like Maria as a character wasn't really used as much as I would like her to. Like, I feel like her whole thing was a lot different than I was expecting. Like, we were all expecting it to be like Space Colony arc, right? And then it just was a random ass fucking gun base.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, yes, fair enough. But it's still something that I was thinking, like, I wish they could have done something better. And with her roller skating in her first scene, I was like, yeah? Yeah? Is she doing that? Yeah? I was a little skeptical about it, but I mean, like, sure, whatever. It was just a bit of a thing that surprised me, and that I'm like, okay, that could have been used better.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing about the runtime that I feel like if we wanted everything that we would have liked to have it, like more characters, like Amy and Rouge and stuff, I feel like it would have had to be Wicked length, like Wicked movie length. I don't know if you guys have. The Wicked movie was basically like, yeah, like 2 hours 30, almost 3 hours. I feel like that would have been plenty of time to do whatever they wanted to.
And what you just mentioned, no joke, literally before we went to this live stream, I literally watched a full-length video with the writers literally talking about the inclusion of the characters. And the one thing is, I'm pretty sure all of us can relate to it, just to not confuse the casuals or the parents that never play Sonic games and why we all jump up and down when we see this character. And then I know that most of these grown adults are not diehard fans. They're going to be like, what's the deal with this character? Why is everyone cheering? So that's why the filmmakers and the writers literally said that they're just taking it step by step of like, second movie we had Tails and Knuckles, third movie we had Shadow and Gerald, and then Gun, and obviously for Amy Rose. Like I said, they wanted to include Amy, but they feel like they want to save the spotlight for like their own standalone movie for Sonic 4, so that he's not pushed to the sideline for a short runtime. So that's why they couldn't get to do it. But to be fair, I feel like this is their choice to like stick with just Shadow as like the main attraction, and then save for other characters for like, not just a hey throwaway side plot and then never been brought up again. They could have been just like the Rockwell character, no solution at the end.
True.
At least we could be happy that didn't happen.
True. And now we know that they'll be introduced later on, so that's good. Go ahead, Bish.
I was gonna say not to step too far ahead, but I am glad that they included a certain someone and are keeping him for the fourth movie, as opposed to like making him take the place of the Bio-Lizard at the end of the movie or something like that. I'm glad that he's getting some time to shine.
Yes.
Absolutely
Okay,
agree.
I'm not gonna trash on many fans, but why would many fans think like, oh, put this character in the final act? First of all, he was not involved with the events of Sonic Adventure 2. Secondly, that character could have been like a Spider-Man 3 situation where they shoehorned Venom at the last minute. So I'm glad that's what I'm saying. It's like it's a Shadow story, not this certain character story. It's better to be stretched out for another movie. So smart move for that.
Yeah, we all knew there was going to be a fourth movie, right? We all knew this going in.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they confirmed it like the day that Sonic 3 itself came out.
I'm not joking with y'all. When I saw the movie on the day, it's like, oh, Sonic 4 is confirmed. Shoot, 2027. Damn, we're all gonna be old.
Right.
Oh my god, I'm gonna be an adult by then. Wow.
I know,
I'm gonna be
right? Like,
my mid-20s, damn it. It's not gonna feel normal when I get to my 30s.
That's
just,
crazy.
Like, just me shouting over a character in kids' game by saying, why is this grown-ass man screaming?
Wait, fuck, I'm gonna be 20 by the time Sonic 4 releases. What the hell?
oh
I'm gonna be approaching my 20s when that comes out, man.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be 19. Oh my gosh.
We go into
Y'all
adulthood.
are like early 20s. I'm gonna be in my mid-20s, man. Y'all are making me old for this.
Rip.
All right, let's move on to the final act of this film, about the last 30 minutes, because that's where we were. And that's basically when Sonic sees Tom dead, essentially, on the floor. He's not dead, but in his eyes, and Shadow makes the. I think he truly knows he made a mistake, like, by doing that. And then obviously we go from there to Sonic and Knuckles having their argument. Then Sonic going to get the Master Emerald from Wade. And that's when Sonic and Shadow fight, both in super form. And I'll stop there, and we can talk about that real quick.
Fight was hype.
Wait. Who wants to talk first, Chris or me?
No, you can't go first. I just wanted to say the fight was hype as hell.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Well, but I did. Okay, first of all, I expected that Shadow was gonna harm Tom in a way. But the one thing that kind of got me off guard is I'm surprised Shadow easily knows Commander Walters of how he looks like right now. Because the last time he saw Commander Walters when he was young in the '70s, not old where he is. So kind of surprised him. Like, hey, you're Commander Walters, even though you're old. But in reality, obviously, it was Tom in disguise with Walters. Which once again, in my mind, I'm like, Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man No Way Home. This is No Way Home all over again. And I'm not complaining. I actually wanted this to happen where Sonic is approaching Tom, basically like his Uncle Ben, and the flashback where Child's like Maria, and then everyone follows up and obviously brings more anger to Sonic. Which, by the way, okay, 3 movies. I'm glad that Jim Carrey's Eggman has the suit. And I'm like, Junkie XL Cook, we get the iconic. Like, yes, they played it. And then secondly, the Eggman theme song and his ringtone. I'm like, great. This is Carrey's last Sonic movie. But has many Eggman Easter eggs. And yeah, I like the Eggman Land Easter egg. Yes, the montage was super goofy and funny, but when they went down to this roller coaster where it has Eggman Land as an Easter egg, nice, I like that. And when it gets to the confrontation of the final act is, yeah, I mean, I'll let everyone speak, but bro, it is literally live action Dragon Ball Z meets Man of Steel, and Super Sonic vs. Super Shadow. And I have to agree with everyone else. I want my 30 minutes back from that final act. Because it's too damn good.
Cinema.
I have more to ramble, but I want everyone else to speak as well.
Yeah, fair. I think.
Who would like to? Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, you can go first. You can go first.
Okay. So, without going too far, kind of like that they used Tom getting injured as Sonic's motive to really get serious. I was waiting for Sonic to really have that moment of okay, it's time. I have to be a leader. It's time to get serious. I need to step up and be a hero. I was honestly kind of thinking that Sonic and Knuckles were going to fight during their little argument. I'm glad they didn't, and I'm glad Knuckles got a chance to get a little bit of character development, stepping down first rather than, engaging in a fight. I don't like how they did Tails. Y'all gonna back off of Tails because that's my buddy.
That's my son.
And, yeah. I'm glad Knuckles was a big brother in that moment, though. That was really nice to see. So moving on a little bit, I don't like how they made Wade the Master Emerald Protector. I thought that little thing was a little stupid. Not gonna lie. He's up here playing hockey with the Master Emerald. I'm like, okay, now if it breaks, what are you gonna do? Yeah. Probably a little bit more. I was kind of surprised that we got Supersonic. It felt like Supersonic was a little early in the movie. I feel like we could have waited just a little bit more to see him. But his entrance in the movie was welcome. I didn't feel too. I don't feel like he could have. I don't know. I'm really bad with English. You couldn't tell, but his addition was really nice, and he was introduced. A lot of time. I'll say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot one major scene to bring up, and it definitely involves both Ivo and Gerald. So literally before they make up their announcement in the Space Colony arc, I love this moment, and I will admit, really love Jim Carrey's acting in both of these scenes. Where literally as we enslave humanity. I mean, he literally said in the second movie about enslaving humanity, but obviously Gerald wants to destroy humanity. I love that Gerald literally says, "Why would you care about a whole world that they never love you? No one will ever love you." And then I was like, "But we're family." And the one thing I will admit, it hurt because obviously I love Jim Carrey's Al Robotnik, where Gerald tells Ivo, "You're no Marie." It's more like, damn, the way that they obviously, obviously Ivo Robotnik did manipulate Knuckles, and obviously it's not too. But I trusted you. I thought you were my friend. Knuckles still betrayed him. Like, well, man, looks like you got a taste of your own medicine, but it's your old man's medicine, where your own grandfather doesn't view you as the granddaughter himself. So it definitely brings a lot more villainy. Which I'll admit this, there are some elements where I kind of like the bitterness of movie Gerald, is because obviously in the games Gerald hates humanity after what he did to Maria, but at least we can see the more sinister side of Gerald when it comes to that. And I like the conflict between, and obviously the main arcs are Sonic, Shadow, and Eggman about overcoming their traumas in their past. And I like the fact that you got two hedgehogs 50 years apart, two Robotniks 50 years apart, and it's a good balance. Like Sonic and Shadow, it's drama. To the Robotniks, it's fun comedy. And by the way, I was not expecting Jim Carrey to say this good by saying, "A nano glove, where'd you get that?" I hated that ever since I watched Green Lantern in 2011. It's like, they're just gonna make Ryan Reynolds run for their money. And I like the moment where Gerald has like a scorpion, and Eggman makes like this line of manscape one where it's like, "Call that mentiscaping. That's elder abuse." Like literally when they're attacking with these robot arachnid, like, I don't know, holograms of the it's like, if they put a Doc Ock reference, that's gonna be too uncanny if they have octopus arms out of them, but that would have been copyright infringement. With that being said, during the fight between Super Sonic and Super Shadow, I like the moment which I did saw a comment where Super Shadow was bringing up Tom, where it's like, what was his name? Tom. It's more like, yeah, that's basically like Sonic Trigger works, where he literally uppercuts him up to the moon. And what was so cool about the moon, which a lot of fans in the Sonic community made a whole lot of art, where I like this moment where Sonic says, "There's no winners in revenge." And it's very smart because let's remember, guys, Amy Rose is not in this movie, so they can't do like, oh, let Amy be the Maria reminder for Shadow. So obviously they got to make it different. It makes the most logical sense that it's Sonic, because obviously we're both hedgehogs. Sonic lost Longclaw, Shadow lost Maria, but then obviously a similar scene for what Sonic did to Knuckles in Sonic 2, where there's always a chance that you can always make the choice for who you are. And I noticed this, like, when I rewatched the movie, Maria placed her finger on Shadow's part, and Tom did the same thing for Sonic. And so it's like, literally when Super Sonic was about to finish out, being like, "Fight me here," it's more like, man, this one finger touch on their hearts, very integral for both of their characters from both their past. So when the light literally shines up to the moon, that's where it's a really smart way where they don't see each other as enemies. And I think this was like a clever writing way of how Sonic and Shadow gets to like make amends, make asides, and overcome their conflicts. And also, okay, I know it's going to be a cheesy comparison, but it definitely reminds me of Spider-Man 3's ending about the acceptance of forgiveness, and we have choices what we make, and we can always choose to do what's right. I was literally talking about that with my friends, like, it kind of reminds me of that with Sonic and Shadow. And of course, as we all wanted, as we expected, we get the iconic Live and Learn riff that Junkie XL finally incorporated. And what's so cool about that final act is, obviously with no Bio-Lizard, but still to be faithful from the games, the gun robots, like, you know, these mechs that flies around, very accurate from what they look like in SA2 in the Shadow game. Of course, you get the SA2 pose. But I will admit, during the conflict with Eggman and Gerald, that caught me off guard is, how did Eggman get Tails and Knuckles help? Because I get that the main fight is Super Sonic versus Super Shadow, Ivo versus Joe Robotnik. What was Tails and Knuckles doing the whole time? Because remember, guys, Tails and Knuckles don't have that much range, so I guess some way for another they got the preparation for Eggman's help. Which, don't get me wrong, at least Eggman gets to fight off his grandfather, and you know, like in SA2 and like in other Sonic games, Eggman does help out when the world's in danger. So I don't know, like, I like that Tails and Knuckles are in the final act, but I feel like there would have been like another clever explanation, or maybe like an additional scene, like what has Tails and Knuckles been doing? How they got the chance to rescue Eggman? Like, I guess Tails had like a gadget to be aware of it. That was just a minor nitpick I just got about how did Tails and Knuckles got included. And of course, Gerald went full on Tom and Jerry, get slide away from a fly bug. And Sox even mentioned this in the video by saying, hopefully Gerald dies. I'm like, yep, they did. In a Wile E. Coyote style way, which, you know, Eggman's the main focus. So that's one way just to keep him off screen.
Yeah, I think the way Gerald dies is just really funny. And about the Tails and Knuckles thing, I planning to write like a fic about it because I'm like, yeah, I would wanted to see what their reaction was to Sonic leaving to get the Emerald and to seeing the super battle because like surely it would have flown ahead, right? Like above them, they would have at least come by once, and like I would have wanted to see, especially what Tails' reaction was to the whole thing, as I said earlier, because like I can't get it out of my head that he just was so chill about it. Like we saw him once try to interfere, get completely shut down by Zero, and then everything's fine when he comes back again. And I was like, okay. I don't know how I feel about that, but sure, whatever. um, yeah. As for the rest of that part, I loved the live and learn part. I think I generally started like going crazy. Like I had to watch it through certain means because I am on holiday and it is not out until the 25th, regardless from where I live. And I was just happy to be able to see it on like release day still. And I was just shocked. I was so happy to hear Live and Learn. I just actually started jumping around. During the part where Shadow held his finger, I could just see the hope drain from Sonic's face. Like in the whole fight Sonic and Shadow have, you can see the anger in Sonic's face. I genuinely thought he would have not gone super and gone like some other different form or whatever because he was using the Chaos Emeralds for, not good deeds. And I essentially associate Super Sonic more with like the good parts of when he transforms. But like so I was like, okay, well, I was like, holy shit, is this gonna be like Dark Sonic or whatever? But no, it wasn't, and I was like, okay, whatever. Anyway, cool fight. And then that moment happened. I was like, holy fuck! Like you could see the hope and the pain seep through, like, and the way that something that I really loved about the super forms, like at points you see them fade. You see them like fading away, like especially in the moment where they were like on the moon and stuff. You could see this super like kind of burning away from Sonic's fur, and I was like, whoa, that's a cool visual. It's like burning away his power because he recognizes that he's not doing anything he likes, that he's not being himself. And so when he realizes and makes the choice that would account more for him and how he is as a person, he becomes himself again. When he goes super, he's not himself. He's completely blindsided by rage. And absolutely valid. Like, holy shit, I started, like, banging on my bed. Like, what the fuck, Tom? What the hell? And it's like, Sonic's reaction is, well, not completely justified, but I definitely get where he's coming from. It doesn't mean he's not in the wrong. Let's say that. He's not completely in the right, because, of course, he does have his reasons, and I do get it. But he did still say and do some things that he does absolutely regret, that we can tell in the scene on the moon. But yeah, I think it's just all that regrets and shame suddenly washing over him, and washing away, burning away the super. It's such a cool visual. And then we get the scene on the moon when they're sitting on the moon, which makes, when they hit the moon with the Eclipse Cannon, it makes it hit so much harder, because Sonic and Shadow were sitting on the moon just a bit ago. They were having a talk. They were having a heart-to-heart. They were making amends. And then it's destroyed. It's not, like, I think there's just, like, so many cool visuals in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, the fight between Gerald and Eggman was really funny. I was just laughing. It was very Wile E. Coyote. Yeah! It was very Wile E. Coyote, and I loved it. It's so fitting of Eggman, and it's awesome. Absolutely. Cinema. That's all I'll say.
I had some words about the final act, but I'm just wondering if anyone else wants to say before I get to say something.
Biss, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, going back to the moon scene a little bit, I really did like that a lot. It reminded me a lot of the beach scene between Sonic and Knuckles from 2, but I liked it way more here because I guess because of the conflict and also because of how genuine they both felt here. They were both very, I guess, introspective would be the right word for it. And like they didn't play it as much for jokes here as they did in 2. Like we didn't get Knuckles going on about how Sonic kept failing. They were both, I guess, intelligently talking about what happened and how they were making amends for that. I like that a lot.
Hmm.
It's very emotionally. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, there's not a whole lot more I can add to like the Supersonic and Super Shadow fight itself because, again, cinema. There's not a whole lot I can add to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like the moon scene is just a very emotionally intelligent scene, and it really shows, in my opinion, how Sonic has grown in the movies. Like in the first movie, he's like a kid. He's having fun. He's just having fun, basically. In the second movie, he's growing more as a person. He's learning to be more responsible. He's learning what it means to grow up. And I feel like in the third movie, he's definitely gotten to kind of the point where current Sonic in the game is, with like frontiers and stuff, like how emotionally intelligent Sonic truly is, and it really shows in the third movie, in my opinion.
I think Sonic takes honestly a couple of steps back to get to where he has to be by the moon scene because he has to like he's letting his anger get the best of him throughout that whole sequence, and that's obviously not going forward. But he like then takes like 10 steps forward by maturing and not blowing Shadow away because I mean he truly could have because he was in his base form and Supersonic or Sonic was Supersonic, so he could have just did what he wanted to do and got his revenge. But him also saying that there's no winners in revenge, that just really that makes him mature so much. And I even feel like this next movie, he's going to have to be like closer to Game Sonic than ever before because he's so much more emotionally mature. And I think that's like the biggest thing about his character. Um, like every other character aside, like Sonic himself, like if he can let go of some of those, like I guess I don't even know if it would be the jokes. I feel like just take things more serious after seeing Tom, almost die. I think that would make his character all the more better.
That's honestly one of my biggest fears about future Sonic movies. Like, of course, like ever since the first movie, like, of course, you are maturing with your younger audience in particular, like, like new fans and new kids, like, for the new generation growing up. And of course, for the third movie, you have to go, like, not too dark, but you have to go more darker than the last two because, Shadow. But I will say this, like, hopefully the balance of the tone when you say, like, it turns into lighthearted stuff. Of course, it's Sonic. Of course, you want it to be fun as a last, but, still, like, have the drama stuff where, not too much of the comedy gets a bit overshadowed. So I feel like the third movie had the right balance compared to the other two, but hopefully future sequels just don't lose that spark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's not what I
think...
was. Go ahead.
No, you go first.
Okay. So that's not. I mean, I was not really trying to allude to like the like him losing. Like, I want Sonic to be himself. Like I feel like that also comes with Ben Schwartz's performance. Like he makes jokes. Like he's a comedian. Obviously, that's gonna come with his character. I just think if they can balance out more of like literally just Sonic making the jokes within his character compared to like the movie. Like the movie, I agree. I think they actually balanced the jokes out outside of the dance sequence as well. I feel like they balanced it out pretty well. I just think Sonic alone making certain jokes, if he can take things a little bit more serious, like before the joke, I think then we're cooking.
And I think it's going to be more insufferable if Jim Carrey's not involved because there's no balance of, okay, jokes for the kids, jokes for the adults, which I will talk about that once we get to that.
So
I was gonna say, too,
is that like
the last remaining.
Yeah,
Lex.
are we ready for the last act, pretty much, or like the last couple minutes?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm ready
just to
for it.
What's up?
just to give my thoughts on the like the whole battle. What everybody else was saying, like peak movie content, like peak animation. I really loved the battle. It was like just amazing seeing Sonic like with all this aggression, like ready to pummel Shadow into the ground. Like it was amazing. And then seeing them both reach for the emeralds, that was really great. Like I was expecting either one of them to have the emeralds or the other. I didn't expect them to both have it. But then you get that fight sequence, and it's just full. Somebody said Dragon Ball Z and like Superman, and like it's just really like they're really going there with all the action. And then you kind of cut to Eggman and Gerald, and you know how I feel about those characters. Like I genuinely could have done without. Like I don't know what it is, but I just could have done without Eggman and Gerald being so comedic throughout the entirety of the movie. Like that's just how I feel. But I'm glad Eggman was like, "Oh, you're manipulating me. Like you don't really care about me. Okay, cool. I'm gonna beat you up now. You lied to me." Somebody was talking about Gerald's death. Like honestly, that was so cheap and so funny at the same time because it's just like he's supposed to be this villain, and then it's just like, oh, bloop, he's gone. Like that was honestly so funny to me. Like that was one of the only times I laughed at Gerald and Eggman, which is unfortunate, but whatever.
I disagree with your opinion, but it's pretty valid what you said.
Pretty valid. Then we get to the second half of Sonic's fight, and like, kind of happy that Shadow took a second to just really like get into Sonic's head. Like, you're supposed to be a team. Like, where are your friends at? Like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're saying that you're not the same as me, but you're letting your anger take over, and you're not being the hero you say you are. So then he finally realizes, like, okay, like this isn't me or whatever, and you get that really heart to heart moment with Sonic and Shadow. Like, I really enjoyed it. It was really nice for them to like finally come to an understanding. Boom. Then you get them flying towards the robots. Absolute like cinema. So amazing, so amazing. I saw the '06 robots, and like I was this close to jumping out of my seat and going, "Those are the robots from Sonic '06! Oh my gosh!" So there was a lot of references in there that I enjoyed. Let me see what else. I think Crystal, you mentioned the detail on Sonic, like when he's falling out of his super form.
Yeah.
Like I really loved that detail. Like it was really like I don't know, it was just really detailed out of detail, and it looked
it's
really
really
cool. Like I really enjoyed it, and then also because it kind of reminded me of Amphibia, and going against King Andreas, and then her powers draining, and like you could visually, not hello English, you could visibly see her like her powers draining. So that was really cool. Like I thought to that when I saw that. I don't like how they threw away Tails and Knuckles towards the end. Like I don't know if that's just how I feel, but I kind of feel like they threw them away when Sonic got down with what he had to do. I'm glad they brought them back, and then Tails saving Sonic, like that was really, like I really love that because you don't really get to see. I feel like you don't really get to see Sonic and Tails be Sonic and Tails, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then of course, Knuckles comes in clutch with that ring. His animation is amazing. And then to go back a little bit, Eggman and Shadow's Shadow's quote unquote sacrifice and the Eggman sacrifice. I like that he finally admitted to Stone, like, you're a good partner. Like I really like I might not show it, but like Stone, I appreciate you. That was really cool. And yeah, overall, that final act, like, it's all I've been thinking about. Like, I need those last 30 minutes, like, just on my phone so I can just replay and replay and replay because it was amazing. But,
Real.
yeah, that was.
Can I real quick
Yeah.
say something about Stone and Eggman?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a TikTok from this actor of Stone talking about all the Yaoi fanfics.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And every time they had an interaction, I was like, just screaming I was just like yelling at my phone, like, Yaoi! Yaoi! Gay! It was really funny. But like, that's just something that I kept remembering, which really made it. I think that's probably made parts of the movie more fun for me. Because I was like, that's silly. Because I've seen a lot of the fanfics that the actors talk about. Like, I write stuff. I look on AO3 a lot, and I've seen the things people can write about these two, and I think that's just kind of really funny with the context of this movie. So that's all I wanted to throw in real quick.
Yeah, we love Stone and Eggman, W characters.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about it with whether it's going to age well for future movies or not. I do have some things about to say about, quote unquote, Eggman's closure because Jim Carrey's Dr. Ivan Robotnik is my favorite character in these movies. He's played by my favorite actor that's in this franchise. So given the fact, and I watched the exact same video for what the writer said of why they ended his character just exactly like that. Like, of course, I didn't expect to be the final Sonic movie, but if there has to be closure to one character, it makes the most sense to be Ivo Robotnik himself, because not only he had his own redemption arc from being this evil mad scientist that hates aliens and now make amends with aliens, and then hates humanity but also tries to save humanity, and then got backstabbed by the only man that was supposed to think to his family but also backstabbed him. And once again, during the moment where everyone had their sacrifice, like the moment where Tails has to get out, like honestly, that's gotta be Tails' best moment of the entire movie franchise, where literally just getting out of space and trying to look out for Sonic and actually, like, take a ride or die situation to save him. Even Knuckles did also another ride or die moment of taking the ring portal and deciding to like bring back a Tails, because it shows how much that these three has gone really close with each other throughout the last two movies with each other. And then for Jim Carrey's Eggman, okay, to be fair, guys, I kind of knew it was in the final act because wink, wink, there was a storyboard leak by Paramount. If those know or don't know, back in January about the leak where Super Shadow pushes the space colony arc and then Eggman takes a sacrifice. I will admit, yes, we have this, I come to make an announcement moment, but it's not done comedically. It's just done more emotionally, where, of course, it's so heartwarming where Eggman, literally when Gerald just tells Ivo, yeah, there's no one in the world that loves you, but there's one person that does, and that is Agent Stone. And I love the moment, which I know it was queer baiting for the Sobotnik shippers, but I will admit it was funny but heartwarming at the same time. You were a single friend. It's more like, and then, I'm not gonna lie, got a little bit too. It's like, I was just quoting lines from the first movie of I love the way you make them. It's like, great. Now those lines in the first movie is gonna hit harder now. And then literally just giving for those that knows Jim Carrey, his Truman Show style ending, where you kind of like have this closure, and the fact that when the space colony arc explodes, we get to see Shadow's Maria flashbacks, kind of like in Sonic X in a way, where he pushes ahead and just remember the good times with Maria. And then Eggman says one final line from the first movie, thanks for nothing, then explodes. More like a, and personally for me, once when Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles realize that Shadow and Eggman saved the world, in my mind, I know the writers and the filmmakers are like, well, it's good that we brought Jim Carrey in. Honestly, this movie will not work if Jim Carrey wasn't involved. But if this was the last time that we'll see Ivo Robotnik, I'm glad that the writers were like, I think this is the best way that we can get an ending to the movie. Is there always room for more, for maybe Eggman Sonic 4? But in my mind, it's like, wow, he died in the space colony arc. I mean, sure, Sonic 2 is one thing. He survived the Death Egg robot. Even, it's so funny that even in the movie, they never explain like how he survived. We're like, wait, you're alive? But how did you survive the crash? That's the one thing I was just curious about. Like, no scene, no context, except the storyboard link that I saw. It shows that Eggman was getting spoon-fed from Stone, which I guess obviously Stone was disguised as a gun agent, and just felt like it could have been like properly explained. But that being said, if this is his last Sonic movie, I'm not upset. I think the writers did a good job by saying like, let's give a satisfying closure, but if they do bring it back, how? I mean, I if there was one way to bring it back, I guess time travel when it comes to a certain metal robotic character in a pig head card that has time travel element in Sonic CD, but that's like the only way. I'm like, are you sure it's worthwhile? Because I think this ending was so good and gave a shout out to Stone and his love for Stone and give a shout out of saying, if I can't rule the world, I might as well save. It's like, personally for me, I think this is the perfect close fragment character where you know it's gonna suck to not have him for future movies. But that being said, what ending can you top after that? Like that's what I'm saying. I'm very 50-50. I kind of want it because the Metal Sonic storyline, and obviously the movies will not feel the same without Jim. But in my mind, like, how can you do a much better ending than that? It's kind of like Toy Story 3 had a good ending than the fourth movie exists, so I kind of don't want to like lose the emotional impact from the first time watching it. And speaking of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, okay, Chunky XL, he paid a home to the last theme for Sonic Adventure 2 that goes do do do. When I listen to it again, I'm like, holy crap! I thought this iconic sad music piece from the game's on the roof was now actually in it. No tears were running from my eye. And this one moment where people said this is a Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric reference. I'm like, wow, referencing the worst Sonic game actually has a heartfelt message at the end. Team Sonic, I prefer Team, and then they just hug it out. It's more like, wow, this movie's too damn wholesome. Like, yes, Lost Ball aside, that was such a beautiful ending for Cow Sacrifice, Eggman's potential real closure. Like I said, I don't know. Personally for me, I think this is the best way to end the story for Eggman. But if they do the fourth movie, it has to make sense. Like it needs to make sense for him to come back if it's time travel or not. But it's them by saying, "Oh yeah, I survived the explosion," would not make any sense at all. That being said, the ending, not just faithful to SA2, but very faithful to the moments of the characters got all their closure moments. So, broken place for everyone is closure from Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Shadow, and Eggman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Shadow's like him deciding to just be able to switch over and now love the earth like his home essentially now, um, and push it away while thinking of Maria. I think that was a really good touch, and also the technical swap of Sonic and not Knuckles, sorry, Sonic and Shadow. Sonic plummets to Earth instead of Shadow. I think that also I like that they really push that Shadow's like the strongest character in the universe. Like I don't even think it's a question. I think it's pretty obvious because I mean Sonic can't even really control his super form for that long. He didn't have as much stamina as Shadow did, and it just really shows just how powerful he is. And now that he's using his strength towards something that he loves, I thought that was great. And again, with the little motif from SA2 being in that final scene, that was really good. Like I love that they're still putting in little bitty tidbits from the games. I wish they would do it a lot more seriously and just go ahead and just use the soundtrack to just make it orchestral. I think that would just be better. But at the end of the day, I think that that final act and especially those final couple minutes with Robotnik and Shadow and Team Sonic like reminiscing that Shadow just risked his life to save the world. All great. Even though I do think this was the end for Ivo Robotnik. I don't think they're going to bring him back for 4.
Yeah, I think that's.
I would love to. Like, I just think it would just kill the purpose of his closure ending that was not just sacrificial, but throughout his whole arc in all 3 movies. So I just think, like what the writer said, this is the best way to conclude his story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think something that I've heard about is that Jim Carrey doesn't like to. He doesn't like to do come back for characters that are just that, but again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is it. I think this is good if we don't get Eggman again. I think this is perfect.
This is a good spot.
I mean, personally for me as a Jim Carrey fan, I mean, at least I can't believe over 20 years of my life, his first trilogy in his career has to be all 3 Sonic movies. But the reason why he comes back is not just because of money, because he wanted a franchisable character that morphs, evolves, and grows, and we literally see the evolution grow from Ivo Robotnik to full-on Eggman. So I just just feel like, and besides, like I said before, I don't think this story would not work if we did not have any of the robotics, especially since they're both tied for Shadow. Since there are, I mean, just like the last two movies, there's always like a theme of family in like all three movies, kind of like what all the Sonic movies have done. But I just feel like that's kind of funny. The first two movies were more focused on the Wachowskis. The Knuckles series just focused on the dysfunctional Wiggles family, and then in this movie, it's all the Robotniks, and we can tell like the bitterness, but also like the closures to what Shadow and Ivan Robotnik has, and of course a little bit of Maria, and half of it was Gerald. So I just think like great polar opposites between like different dynamics of the families, specifically with the Wachowskis and the Robotniks in these movies.
Yeah.
I think you said it better than I could.
I've always wanted to say this passionately, and it's a good thing I'm saying this in the screen, so I don't have to ramble on an edited video. So I'm like, I really have to express this out because, not only because I love the Robotnik character, but just loving, like, what they've treated with these family dynamics, but also how the way they keep trust for the closure. So, having said, a great way to end the movie, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Biss, do you have anything to say?
With this,
Sorry.
I just real quick want to say that I'm gonna head out.
Okay.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, I just wanted to give my thoughts a bit where I could, so I'll see you all around.
See ya.
All right. Let's take care now. Bye bye then. Yeah, I guess the Biss guy has to say something.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the ending goes, I do see where everyone's coming from with it being a decisive end for Eggman, and considering what you've all said, I do appreciate it a bit more, but at the same time, I still feel a bit weird about Eggman of all people getting a redemption, because, like, I mean, you look at Eggman, he's the big bad of the series.
Mm-hmm.
He's just this huge narcissist, especially in like the first movie. And again, I don't hate his redemption here, but at the same time, it just does feel a bit strange in my opinion.
What do you mean by strange, though?
Say why? Like, what's your valid reason for that? Because I don't understand.
Well, I mean, it's a bit difficult to put into words.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it, these are like very different characters from the games, especially Sonic and Eggman now. It's hard for me to look at Eggman and then see like him wanting to, I guess, sacrifice himself. Which I mean, and again, I do kind of see where it's coming from, considering he doesn't really have anything left. If he can't rule the world, he might as well save it. I get it, but I'm just not sure about that decision. Like, I'll accept it. I'm not gonna like go on strike because they wrote this character in a different way.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm just curious, what, in your perspective, in your own words, what do you think in your mind could have been done better, since you're not the biggest fan of how they give his closure and his arc, in your own words?
I guess my big thing with it is that like it was a heroic sacrifice, because obviously in Adventure 2 he did help the good guys. He did help save the world in that story, and yeah, that makes sense. But it's just, again, I'm sorry, I have such a hard time forming the words for it.
You're good.
It's hard to see, like, especially this Eggman go out of his way to like actively save the world. I guess one way they could have done it is that like they could have just had him like brush it off and say, "Oh, I'm only doing this for Stone," or something like that. Like just
Yeah, but to be fair, in the movie verse, Stone is basically the only person that actually and genuinely cares about Ivan Robotnik in a way, and nobody else can. I mean, sure, maybe he could care less about, human life compared to Gerald, but there's actually one person that actually does, compared to Gerald and everyone else. And I guess temporarily, Sonic and his friends, just for a while.
yeah.
I think it really depends on how you view it. Because I think he still has like this view of the world. Like I don't think he really cares. Like I don't know how to explain it either. But like he's saving the world, yes, but he's still doing it from the selfish intent. Like he's still saying it like, oh yeah, well I might as well save it because I mean like I'm the hero now instead of like any other reason except whatever he said to Stone. I think that was genuine and heartfelt. But like the world thing, like he knows he's going to die, so it I guess as a human on Earth, if you hear this about it in the news or something, you just gotta take it how you want. Because I mean, if I was there, I would still would like hate Eggman for what he did, but I guess in his eyes, it's still he's the main character in his world, so this is how he's going to go out as the hero. Because otherwise, I mean, he's going to die.
It's more like
I
he's
really
gonna
considered
jump
that
down
actually.
straight. And the thing is, and like what you guys brought up, he has no other purpose left. I mean, literally, he reconnected with his grandfather, but then his grandfather was a bit more bitter and heartless than he ever was to himself and to how other people treated him. And what's next? What's left for Robotnik? And basically, it's just one way just to forgive the one and only person that cares about him in the earth. And of course, I mean, in the first two movies, he always talks about enslaving humanity, trying to dominate them. Of course, try to harm the people town of Green Hills. But I just feel like if there's nothing left, I guess the best way is, even though the world did not give you a favor in return, but you could somewhat save the world so other people on that planet can still live on, not just Stone, but for those other colorful bunch of alien characters. So that's what I'm just saying. Like, I just think, even though it changes like a change of heart for Eggman, because obviously in the games, Eggman does like temporarily make an alliance with the Sonic game, which obviously that is true to the character. But remember, guys, this is the movie version. It's not going to be like Sega's version because obviously Sega can't canonically kill Eggman. But for Paramount, it's different because the actor might not stick around for this franchise for long, and two, the filmmakers are like very hesitant by saying, let's just bring every Eggman idea we can put in there, whether or not he does come back. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, outside of the Metal Sonic storyline, I just feel like, yeah, I think this is the best you can do just to conclude the character story. Because if you would just like bring him back again and again and again, then the cop out deaths would be too repetitive. Even if there's no explanation like how you survived the death egg, how you survived the space colony yard, then I just feel like, all right, if he comes back in the next movie, then we're not going to take this cop out death seriously. So I just feel like they should leave it as it is. Like, as much as I love his character in these movies, I just feel like this is the best way to stop and not like force a shoehorn it back and just repeat the exact same endings again and again.
Yeah.
I agree. I think if you're ever gonna bring him back, I think it has to be with a time travel thing, but I don't think it should be with the time stones or if Chaos Control has a different power and they're gonna make that the equivalent to the time stones. I've heard people say that.
Sonic or Silver or whoever.
I think if it should happen with Silver, like his story. I think that makes more sense, and I think
Even
it should
from the
be.
future.
I think it should just be like in a fifth or sixth movie where they go back in time, and that's how he's there. Like I don't think bringing him back or saying that he survived. I think that would ruin almost
It will kill,
ruin the third.
the purpose of this movie in the third film.
hmm So let's go ahead and move on to now. Like so, unless you guys have anything else to say about like the ending as a whole. Like I mean, we know they go back and they race, but that's about it.
And the Jelly Roll song, and then you got the SA2 references, the Sega Saturn models, pretty good stuff. Good effort. That's all I gotta say. And yeah, just to say, I like Run It, but even though we can all agree that Stars in the Sky is easily the best original song for these Sonic movies alone, because has a good happy vibes, and plus Kid Cudi is a huge Sonic fan. Run It song, I will admit, it does not fit Shadow, but it does fit like the happy tone what Team Sonic's gone through at the ending. So
hmm
I liked it, but not my favorite song out of the three movies for the credits.
Same here. So now,
Yeah, I don't
oh,
really.
go ahead. You're good. Go ahead.
I, yeah, I don't mind I guess the credit scenes for all three. The songs, I'm sorry. I don't mind the songs for all three of the movies. I don't dislike them, but I don't feel like I don't feel too um emotional towards them, like one way or the other. Like they're fine. They serve their purpose. They're good.
Yeah. I preferred Stars in the Sky a lot more. That's kind of my style of music that I like anyway, and compared to Speed Me Up and Run It. So at the end of the day, I think,
I will admit that one is a lot more catchy than the other two.
yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. I think that's just the more catchy of the two. So yeah, are we ready to talk about post credits and call it a stream?
I am.
All right. So I want to start with the second one though. I don't want to start with the big hitter because I think the second one has significantly less. We see a big crater just in the middle of anywhere, and then we see Shadow's inhibitor ring. We see him pick it up, and it basically alludes that he is alive, and which is great. I think that they're gonna go forth and make a Shadow TV show or movie. I'm hoping for a movie in between this time, but they would have to be working on it like right now, essentially. And I
Yes.
think they are. I really do.
Yeah, since we are just talking about the Shadow post credit scene, because I will admit it is a shorter topic in comparison to the first post credit scene. But speaking of which, I think I remember there's this one rumor like if Sonic 3 is a big massive hit, then we will get a Shadow spinoff movie, not a TV show. I 100% agree that it should be a movie, and I also agree. I think like to not wait too long for like great, not to wait 2027 for like the main Sonic story because the thing is, obviously Shadow is on his own. He's not with Team Sonic. Like obviously, I would disagree with the fans by saying let him move with the Wachowskis, bro. You literally just knocked out Tom. Why would you want to move on with them?
Right.
Shadow's not that type of character that would click into this colorful bunch of wacky family shenanigans. So seeing a Shadow spinoff movie definitely brings a lot of possibilities, no pun intended. Like, first of all, like what we all agree on, we wish to see like more scenes with Marie and Shadow like throughout. And I will admit, like maybe take notes from the Dark Beginning shorts of seeing like more of their development, seeing more of their relationship, kind of like what the Dark Beginning shorts done really so well for the cool segments. And not only just that, okay, we talked about Eggman's closure, but now Agent Stone is gone. Where does Stone go? And I'm like, well, if you had to bring, because you know, for these Sonic movies, we gotta pair up this one CGI character with a human character. Obviously, Sonic 1, it was Sonic and Tom. They're not theories, it's Knuckles and Wade. So, if anything, if Stone has nowhere left to go, what if he finds Shadow and what if Stone teams up? Because they did have like a amount of screen time. Like they did actually seem to like they get along and got a small dynamic, and I feel like if you want to do more with Agent Stone, I think that's the best way to go. And the best thing about the Shadow spinoff, I mean, I don't know if Jeff Bauer is actually going to incorporate the Black Doom stuff because, like I said, they changed the origin, and Jeff said it would have been too much for one movie, so maybe incorporate Black Doom stuff in it. And I feel like the best way for the Shadow movie is how do you incorporate Rouge the Bat and Omega? Easily a Shadow spinoff movie if that was the case. Would that be a bit too much? But I think that would be, and what like for the fans, it would be interesting. But at the exact same time, it's like, well, instead of just using one CGI character for the Knuckles series, like for a movie, you really gotta put a budget on it. And secondly, more explorations or you can take some inspirations from the 2005 game where Shadow is still trying to like not with the amnesia plot or the android subplot. What I mean is like finding his purpose of where can he go right now, like after when he literally saved the world and now that he's on his own, where else could Shadow take for his next move? So I will say this, like in order to keep like the Sonic movie content alive, still wait for Sonic 4. And yes, I do want Shadow back in Sonic 4. Even Bench Ford says that Shadow could be in the role, but just to like have more explanation for like his story, it should be like more stretch out on his own than just like completely sidelined in Sonic 4. Like I could see Shadow get a subplot in Sonic 4, whether it's a little on his own and maybe with Sonic with the help of like, you know, attacking Metal Sonic. But if you want to go more deeper with it, a spin-off movie will be the best way to go. Like, I don't know, maybe 2026 if I had to take a guess. I don't know. That's just me.
How about you guys?
I mean, I think I agree because there's a lot you can do with Shadow for a spin-off, but I think there's a bit too much to do just for like a 6-episode miniseries. I think you need like the budget and the time like for a movie to properly do like that kind of story with Shadow justice.
I agree.
That's why I agreed that it should be a movie adaptation because with that short amount of runtime, we don't want the budget to be another stupid Knuckles situation where they barely have the CGI character in the production. And not only just that, I mean, hello guys, Keanu Reeves is a big star that will sell tickets. Shadow the Hedgehog. I mean, thanks to Sega by saying like, wait a minute, Paramount's gonna go big with Shadow in the third movie. Let's just do everything Shadow. Let's just make this your Shadow. New video game, new anime shorts, merchandise, crime, cross promotion. It's like you know they're not going to get rid of Shadow and get rid of Keanu after one movie because obviously Keanu Reeves and Shadow the Hedgehog will sell. So easily, I think a movie could easily work and get fans of both the actor and the character into the seats. So it will be a hit for Paramount regardless.
I agree. I'm not gonna say anything else about that though because I have a video in the works about it, so I'll leave that for that. But let's move on to the final thing of today, and that'll be the first post-credit scene. And I want to say something about that real quick. I like that they did both Amy and Metal Sonic. I also like how now they're finally doing it a little different. The post-credit scenes usually, like Tails pops up in movie one, he doesn't meet him. He doesn't meet Knuckles, and to movie two, he doesn't meet Shadow. This is like right after movie three. Like there's no time passed, like essentially, and they're here. I also like how there's a lot of questions left. Like I'm glad it's not like okay, we know with Shadow we're about to get SA2 essentially. We know with Tails we're about to get Sonic 2 and Sonic 3 combined. But with this, we don't really know where they're going because Sonic CD is not big enough to do what they want to do, and that's keep building these movies up to be larger and larger. And that's why I genuinely think they're going to make a Shadow movie because I think they're going to more so adapt Sonic Heroes compared to Sonic CD because in a Shadow movie, you can do something and give him more characters. And then they have their movie, and then you don't really have to do like all these stories again. You can focus on building Sonic's dynamic with Amy, with Knuckles, with Tails, and then all their um, problems with Metal Sonic. And I think he's gonna eventually become Metal Overlord. That's my biggest prediction of this.
That would easily be like worthy enough for like the final act for if they need a metal boss battle. But also if you tag Shadow at the end of their forgiveness with Team Sonic, like imagine that. Imagine that in the final act. And I know I might be asking for too much, but maybe Super Tails, Super Knuckles, just like in Sonic Heroes. You know what I mean?
That would be interesting. I'd be curious how they would adapt that though.
I don't know it would be the same exactly like the games, but get Tails and Knuckles into the action than just Sonic or Shadow by comparison. But hey, it's a film element, so that's.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, anyway, my thoughts on the post-credit scene. So yes, I mean, just like the rest of you guys, it is exactly the two characters that I wanted. Like my first reaction was, finally. I mean, no offense, but as much as I love Shadow, I can't believe it took you 4 movies to finally put Amy Roosevelt aside. Don't get me wrong. I think Shadow was the smart. It was the smart move to do SA2 for the third movie because obviously that creates time. But I will admit, I feel like that the most challenging and daunting task from what the crew has to do with Sonic 4, it's not about getting Amy rights and getting Metal right. I think they'll do the characters justice. Like, how can you top three? Not just in terms of the story, but from the action scale and everything. Because obviously, for these Sonic movies, it's like each movie gets better and better. Which for most franchises, that's not a common word. Oh, the first movie's better, but the sequel stuff. Oh, the second movie's the peak, but the third one's a downgrade. So it's pretty rare that each movie gets better in the franchise. So now that we're entering the fourth, it's like obviously it doesn't have to go super dark like Shadow, but you still need to have like that dark dramatic tone. Like for instance, Metal Sonic, the design is so peak because not only he is 100% game accurate from what you see from the games, but also I know from what they've done with Tails and Shadow, where they bring like an early design in the post-credit scene, and then when they come back in the sequels, they kind of like tweak up the design so then Tails looks better, Shadow looks better. So I don't know if that's going to be the definitive design for Amy, which I still like it, but I know they're going to like tweak up her design a bit more. But that being said, the one thing that I did not expect was this whole post-credit scene is not just like, oh, like what Sock says, like, oh, just tease the character but not just Sonic. Like, no, this credit scene is basically a prologue scene for Sonic 4, and it's a good thing that we didn't have to wait to see Sonic and Metal Sonic fight, so at least we get to see like a snippet by saying, all right, we finally get to see the movie and Rage Sonic fight Metal. But also, I like that there's multiple Metal Sonics. I'm like, you guys can go very Terminator style, Terminator Back to the Future style with some of the elements that you can do with the Metal Sonics. But the one thing that did caught me off guard is like, so wait, Sonic literally raced all the way from Green Hills to New York. So I'm like, I'm guessing New York is gonna be a set piece. I mean, it's not the most original idea for an action blockbuster movie because New York is like the most common city. But I guess to make the films a bit different, I guess so as well. I remember the writer said that they want the fourth movie to like possibly go off world. It's like if the Paramount producers, the Paramount guys, actually let them go off world a bit. I mean, sure, the third movie they went to space because that's exactly like SA2. But for the first two movies, the only planets we only get to see was Green Hills in the very beginning of the first movie and the Mushroom Planet, and that's it. That's the only off-planet stuff that we got from Sonic movies that's not just space. Which I get it, CGI is expensive, but I think it would be cool, like, outside, like, they could still go to other cities on Earth so they could still keep the human characters, but if they find, like, in other different planets, like maybe one or two from Amy's world, because the thing about Amy Rose, she's not a damsel in distress just like how she is in Sonic CD, and hopefully she's not, a copy of Princess Peach in the Mario movie, but, Amy Rose is still a badass, still capable of just, like, knocking out all the medals. But let's not forget, guys, the moon is still split in half. So I'm like, I think that's still going to be a key plot point because it's not like people are going to look like, hey, look, the moon's like crossed in half. All right, let's just live on our days. Like, I think that will be a major set piece for Amy Rose and Metal. And speaking of Metal, I wonder how did Metal got in here? Maybe with or without Eggman, the time travel aspects where he just randomly shows up, did Amy stuff create him? Like, there's so many questions of what they could like not just introduce Metal Sonic, but like how was Metal Sonic designed? How did he got here? And why is there like multiple clones? Like I don't know if they're gonna take like inspiration from the comics or it's just like Metal Virus, but in terms of the game, I definitely see CD elements, but I have to agree with Sonic. Like obviously story wise, it's not like big because it's just an old retro game where Sonic travels to the past, present, future, saves Amy Rose, Metal Sonic. But it's a movie adaptation, so they're gonna twist it away. But like Sonic Heroes, of course we do got Heroes elements with Sonic Heroes and Knuckles, but now adding Amy Rose into the addition of this, and I like that the writers have actually said that aside from not shoehorning Amy Rose in, they actually want to bring Amy Rose into like a full fleshed out character, not just a hey guys, we have a girl on the team and that's it. Like obviously she wears a hoodie, so I'm thinking that Amy could be similar like Tails, but not exactly the same like Tails. Like maybe she knows the existence of Sonic. I mean, if you didn't know about Sonic, then why did she save his life with all these metal doppelgangers that look exactly like him? So I think with Amy Rose, it's like not you get a little bit more hedgehog more, but maybe hints, visual, so like verbally, more hints about Amy's world, Sonic's original home Valley planet. So that's why when the writer says we want to go off world, hopefully they do because there's so many possibilities that you can let Amy Rose be like the guide to like Sonic's multiple planets, but also the Metal Sonic invasion. And then, of course, what I'm most excited about is the dynamics where Amy and Sonic, like, obviously not like romantically in love, but like platonically and mutually, kind of like in the recent media, like Frontiers, where they kind of like have a platonic and mutual respect towards one another, while also bringing Amy's dynamic between Tails and Knuckles. And then, I mean, aside from Eggman, you literally got the classic cast, the Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, all set around together with the invasions of the Metal Sonics and so many opportunities that they can do with it. But I will be honest, do I expect more characters to show up in Sonic 4? I mean, the filmmakers want to take it bit by bit where they don't want to shoehorn a character for cameos or last minute stuff. I mean, I would like to see more, maybe a Big the Cat cameo is all I could care about. But either way, I know the main central focus, like, Amy Rose and Metal Sonic will be the main central story, which I hope that since the moon is still split in half, I know that's going to be a major plot point aside from the Metal Sonic invasion. New York is going to be a set piece in the film. And, of course, it's going to be a lot for Amy Rose to shine. And I do think that Shadow will get involved, which, once again, I prefer a spin-off movie first to see more Shadow on its own. And then maybe, like, Shadow, like, he's not, like, obviously, he's not pals or buddies with Sonic and the crew, but just like Shadow in the Gates, like, he's neutral, but obviously not on their team, but still help one out when a bigger threat where, like what Sonic says, if Metal Sonic can morph from multiple Metal Sonics, Neo Metal Sonic, and then Metal Sonic Overlord in the final lineup, I think that's one way you could do just like make the stakes bigger than Sonic 3, which that's best guesses for what they could do before. But that being said, glad they chose the right characters for the next film, so can't wait to see it. In spring 2027. Unless, I don't know, Sonic 5 is Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic 6 is Mario Sonic Olympic Games movie. But that being said, that's all I can say about Sonic 4.
How about you guys?
Yeah, what do you guys have to say?
I just want to start as a huge Metal Sonic nut. I am very interested and very excited to see where they go with him because there are a number of different directions they could go, especially with all the different Metal Sonics themselves. I think what I want to see is like something adjacent to the Brotherhood of Metal X from the Fleetway comics,
Hmm.
but then have, I guess, either the Blue Metal Sonic or maybe Neo Metal Sonic as that leader, and then over time they collect more data, and then Neo Metal Sonic takes that data, and then by the end of the movie he's ready to fight, and then show off as Metal Overlord. Obviously with a bit more details here and there, but there's a number of things they could do, and I am excited to see all the different things they could do with the guy.
I agree. I like that. I like what both you and Daniel have
Like
been
the metal,
saying.
like with the Neo Metal being in charge, I think that would be pretty clever, just distinct from the others. And also, since Sonic and Shadow has like a lot of SA2 moments, like obviously I can expect CD recreations, Heroes recreation, and dare I say, I would not be surprised if they reference the OVA movie, since Metal Sonic had a huge presence in that film, so I wouldn't mind seeing like a strange Isn't It reference or the clashing between Metal and Sonic just like in that movie. So I think that would be nice if they had like reference that to like multiple Metal media, including from the comic books themselves, since Metal played a huge part in both Archie and IDW. But I feel like the real question is, should Metal have a voice? Like I know he didn't speak in the post-credit scene, but I'm kind of 50-50 on it. A part of me feels like I think he should be silent because that's how the character is, but Metal does talk before, and I guess for the casuals that are not Sonic fans, I guess cast an actor that will bring like a menacing voiceover chip for Neo Metal Sonic just to be like, not Metal to be a silent character throughout. I don't know. Agree or disagree? Should he have or have no voice for the next film?
I think if they want to do the thing where like there's one like center Metal Sonic that becomes Neo Metal Sonic, if they do that, they should have him not speak, but then like as he upgrades himself, as he becomes closer to Neo Metal Sonic and Metal Overlord, that's when he starts talking. I think that it's probably the most generic way to do it, but I think that make the most sense.
I agree. I feel like that builds the character still without like, I don't know, outright saying that he's gonna be like the big bad. Does that make sense?
And especially like depending on his origin, like where he comes from, him not being able to speak, but then like him giving himself that ability, that would just further show his evolution as like a machine or Eggman robot, depending wherever he comes from.
Yeah, because even we don't know. He just randomly struck from lightning. And like I said, I think it would be good for the fans where he's silent at first and they give him a voice, but also for the casuals by saying like, oh, what big name actor is going to be voicing this character that's not. I'm not saying it needs to be as big as Keanu Reeves or Idris Elba, but at least like a familiar actor that knows the direction just to bring a menacing voice for Metal Sonic, just like how he is from Heroes and the comic books as well. So I think like being silent and having like a menacing voice will be like a nice build-up for both the fans and the casuals that just don't know much about Metal Sonic.
What they could do, they could just get that celebrity casting for Amy if they felt like it, but at the same time, they could do something interesting with Metal Sonic's voice and they could have Ben Schwartz take that, like,
I was thinking
his
that.
voice in a bit more of like a menacing role.
I was just
Like
thinking
what
that.
happened with,
To be fair, Ben Schwartz did the voice for BB-8 in the Star Wars movie, so he's known different for voicing robot doppelganger, so that's a popular fan theory that most people would say.
Wait, did he voice BB-8?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he did. He voiced another robot character in Star Wars, so of course, I mean, obviously he has a history for voicing little characters, but even robots as well. That's why some people decide to bring that up, aside from, Ben Schwartz's range. But I don't think it's going to sell in terms of tickets, but I think the character alone, with or without the voice, is still like, be convincing enough just to get those butts in the seats, regardless.
Yeah.
I think they
I
gotta
think
go away
what would work
from.
most. Oh,
Sorry, you can go.
I was gonna say, I'd rather they don't just have Ben Schwartz do like his Sonic voice. They should definitely have him like change it a little bit alongside some filters. But
Mm-hmm.
like the detail of him voicing both Sonic and Metal Sonic, I feel would be like not beneficial, but it'd just be like a nice callback, especially to Heroes
Mm-hmm.
and like all the other instances.
Mm-hmm. Because didn't Ryan Drummond do the voice for Metal as well for one of those games?
Yeah, he did. He did Neo Metal Sonic and Heroes, and then the same voice actor for Sonic in the Japanese version also did Metal Sonic, as far as I'm aware.
Okay, that would be a nice homage. But also, it would have been more ironic because, Jim Carrey plays both of the Robotniks in Sonic 3. I think that would be such a silly way by saying, hey, Ben Schwartz's voice the Hedgehog and also the Metal Hedgehog at the same time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say. I think they should, like, outside of Amy, because I mean they do need one casting that will get butts in seats. I think that they should just also believe that these movies can sell and do well, and let Ben play Metal Sonic. I think that just makes sense, just how the Sonic history goes.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Amy Rose, I know it might be too soon to say because they just introduced the character, just like how we all theorize and fan cast by saying, oh, who should voice Shadow? And the producers literally just said, fans want Keanu Reeves, and we got Keanu Reeves, and then Keanu says yes. But I feel like for Amy Rose, I will admit, I think the casting was more, well, in terms of fan casting, is a tad bit more trickier than casting Shadow. Like ever since the first movie, I'm like, Keanu for Shadow, it's all three, and we got that. But for Amy Rose, who do you cast? I mean, of course, there's popular fan favorites like Anna Kendrick, Kristen Bell. Someone jokes about Aquafina, but we all disagree with that. I don't know. If I'm choosing A-list talent, I'm still either Anna Kendrick or Kristen Bell because voiceover work with Ben Schwartz. Those are like in terms of like A-list, like well recognized to the audience for like people that are not fans, but also like the vocal cords that could fit the character. But those are just my fan picks in terms of that.
I haven't gotten to fan picks yet. I just know Anna Kendrick is one of the most like popular names that people keep saying. I want to.
I will not be surprised if producers are listening to it because they might do.
I think they will. I think that's probably the most obvious one. I want them to go with someone who isn't like overly A-list because I think also these movies again. I think they need to just trust that they can bring in anyone and let them like get let this be their kickstart role because if they're gonna give Amy a huge role, I think pick someone who's not super known or like use one of these characters to kickstart someone's career. And I feel like Amy's like the perfect character to do that.
That's very true. To be fair, I don't think whoever they cast will never top, the level of fame of Keanu Reeves and Idris Elba because arguably, I mean, outside of Jim Carrey, Idris and Keanu are like the two biggest ones in terms of like the voice cast for the Sonic movie crew. Just don't choose your generic choices. Like, don't choose a Zendaya, don't choose an Aquafina. Just
Mm.
find someone who's recognizable but still suits the role for Amy Rose. And like, just like the other voice actors, like they bring their passion to the character, but they also bring in their own iteration of the character that makes you feel like, yeah, I'm hearing Amy Rose. Like, for instance, like the reason why I like Keanu Shadow, like, even though yes, I can tell it's Keanu, but there's some moments I'm like, this doesn't sound like Keanu. I'm hearing Shadow. Like, I'm hearing more of the character than the actor, which that's the biggest praise I'll give about Keanu's performance. So hopefully, whoever they cast, we get to get that vibe from Amy Rose in a way or another.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about the post credit scene.
Anyone else have anything to say about the post credits?
Yeah,
You guys pretty much summed it all up for me. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're just gonna go CD sort of Heroes inspired. Yeah, I definitely think they need to have somebody with some popularity, somebody with a name to to voice Amy, but somebody that can actually fit that role. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to see Sonic 4. Ready to see what, because I feel like they're gonna do another trilogy, which
I agree.
I don't know how that's gonna go, but I feel like they're gonna do another trilogy, but I'm not sure like how exactly that's gonna go. But hopefully it goes really well. Yeah, I do think Shadow deserves a movie. Sure how they would do that, but it's not a movie, definitely a TV show. That's pretty much sums it all up for me.
Okay.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, I feel like the biggest question is we have to wait until Sonic 4, but clearly we all want a Shadow spinoff in between, just like Knuckles was in between Sonic 2 and Sonic 3. And then if they do Shadow spinoff, that would be a great gap between Sonic 3 and Sonic 4. Now, the real question is, I know there's been rumors around by saying, like, oh, we could bring Team Chaotix if they make a Knuckles Season 2. We bring in Silver the Hedgehog. Which, don't get me wrong, I do want this franchise to keep on going for as long as they have good creative ideas that they could be cooking up. Like, personally, for me, it's like, because in my mind, it's like Sonic 06 would be great for like maybe for a fifth movie just to bring Silver into the franchise. But I feel like the real question is, what do you do after an 06 story? Like, don't get me wrong, yes, there are some Sonic games that do exist, but like personally, this is just me being biased. Like, what story can you top that would like rose in the level peak if they ever adapt 06 to the big screen? Because I feel like 06 is a very Avengers Endgame type of story where you can wrap up a closure to the franchise, but if they don't want to wrap it up, what story could top 06 that's not Forces or Lost World or any of those game titles?
I think that would be the end. Like, I think that's why they're saving Silver. Like, my hope is that they're saving him to do like a Spider Verse like 2-part story. I think that's like the best way to end this like
That'd be a great way.
I just think that's the best way to do it because you can tell even if like you don't want Silver to like be just in one movie, you can have him be obviously in both 5 and 6, and like have Blaze be a separate person from that because like you have her dimensions thing, and just put Mephiles or someone like equivalent to that as like this guy who's on the tier of a god, and then you don't have to do any like get bigger than that because he's your final boss. He's like on god status, so
Yeah.
the building and the character building, it doesn't have to be so complicated because I think 06 is like the penultimate end to this movie universe, but we don't know if they're gonna do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I know they have ideas. Like, obviously, they're aware that Silver's a fan favorite. Which, by the way, if they do introduce Silver in the movie, Sega, you gotta utilize the character a lot more than just being a sideline character. You know what I mean? Because Sega does not bring that much love and attention for Silver outside the comic books and the merchandise. So they gotta make a year of Silver at some point if Silver does appear in the movie. And not only just that, I definitely agree that it should be like a two-part, kind of like what Spider-Verse movies does. And another thing I also want to point out is the fact that because once when you do 06, like you're bringing in Silver, you're bringing in Blaze, you're bringing in maybe Crisis City, and this time the real Iblis, not a stupid puppet Iblis that jokes about Facebook Marketplace in the Knuckles show, which that was dumb. But then Mephiles, that's a Thanos level threat right there. Like the movie potential, the movie material that you could do with Mephiles as a villain, especially with him carrying Shadow, bro, that's gonna go hard once when they do that for like a final boss when they introduce Mephiles in the movies. But that being said, it's like there's no other story that could top that. Like I originally thought maybe they could have won Chaos, but I don't think Chaos would like sell as much as Metal Sonic. By comparison, I think they're most likely to skip that story, even though missed potential for that story. If I'm going to be honest, around that time. But yeah, I don't see Unleashed or Frontiers or Lost World. I just think that 06 would be the best way to go, even though the cast member said like, oh, let's make 10 of these movies. Like, if you make 10 or 15, then y'all are really milking this so hard. But hopefully, the story narrative and the slow build-up of the characters in the games, they just take their time with this. We can see Amy Rose, Metal Sonic, Team Chaotix, dare I say Big the Cat at some point, but hopefully slowly but surely expanding more of the world in sequels and spin-offs. So, I mean, in retrospect, I can see them make the movies like maybe for like another 4 or 5 years from now until like I know many fans are like make an animated reboot. That's only if a movie flops, the live action ones, and maybe they might consider like maybe somewhere in the future. But for now, it's still the main focus of the live action CGI build up. And like I said, they should do more for as long as they could.
Yeah, I think they've got another trilogy in them, and that's just really all I'm looking for. And I think then you need to move away from the live action into an animated thing because I just think that's just Sonic. That's where I think everything